It's February 12th. If you're watching this on launch day, you only have 2 days until Valentine's Day.
You're not Krista.
Krista's doing normie stuff as far as I know.
We don't even know what she's doing. But
that darn wedding.
Oh, we have not yet begun to experience the wedding problems. It's going to be pretty extreme.
She can't go to LTX because of the wedding.
We have a weird split of the news. I feel like we say that every week. But so this week, it's going to be government and just a tiny bit of design, which really, design, we've got nothing to say about.
Canceled.
So we'll do it just a spider, but don't expect much from it. And then Friday will be the big day, which is weird because usually Friday's like the catch-all day. So anyway, let's begin, as we love to do, with America's favorite person.
House Democrats tell Ajit Pai, stop screwing over the public. Ars Technica did not take an artistic license with that headline. The senators are very upset, at least the Democratic ones.
Well, they are. But as we'll see in a future story, some of it's manufactured upset.
Yeah.
I don't think they quite understand it. But at least they're doing something. And so they really are taking the gloves off when it comes to what they're accusing Pai of doing, which is what he is doing. He's in the pocket of the corporations. And,
something, it will lead to more competition and more choices, and that's not actually a thing.
They're kind of pulling back the layers on the excuses to reveal how stupid they are.
They are really dumb.
You really don't have to really look too hard into it. Like, even these politicians can understand, to some degree, how ridiculous that is. And in that vein, he has lost.
Ajit Pai has lost in court. Judges overturned the gutting of a tribal broadband program. So this is a subsidy that the FCC has provided to people on tribal lands. It doesn't matter if it's rural tribal lands or urban tribal lands.
Are there a lot of urban tribal lands?
Probably out west, like around Vegas, I would guess.
Well, but Vegas is like little clusters of city with giant deserts. So still, I'd say urban is a relative term there.
Yeah, that's true. Well, it turns out that it's hard to do broadband in rural areas.
Well, there's no reason to.
Yeah.
It's probably not that hard. Yeah. It's just same as rural. Money's not there. If you're going to run a new infrastructure and you're going to get 100 customers versus run an infrastructure and get 5,000 customers, that's pretty easy math.
The judges here basically said that we don't understand how you came to the conclusion. Can you cite your sources? And the FCC couldn't. So somehow removing the subsidy would lead to more competition. But it was almost like in South Park, where it's like those guys that are not supposed to hunt stuff, like the stuff. It's like, oh, it's coming right for us. I fear for my life, and then they shoot it. This was like, oh, it'll increase competition. Let's get rid of it. The judges were like, well, did you base that on any kind of like study or whatever? And the answer was no.
I think it was supposed to be like resellers didn't get the subsidy, but main providers still could. So like if Verizon went into those areas, then they would be encouraged to do so because they would not have to compete. I don't know. It was very flimsy. It was $25 a month. So if you're in a tribal area, you get $25 toward your phone and or internet, which it seems like, how much could that have even mattered? I mean, considering the amount of tribal land, it's a weird battle to fight, I think.
There's not a lot of, I would not think that would affect a lot of subscribers, but the article I think mentions it was like 2 or 3 million accounts. Wow. Potentially are affected.
That's amazing. I didn't realize we had that much tribal land.
It seems like that's a lot, but that maybe is not also a lot for, I mean, it's 1% of the population. So,
but you got to think, so 2 million out of, what are we at, 230?
Yeah. Oh, no, it's like 300.
Oh, is it 300 now? And some percentage of those people just simply aren't going to use it.
Yeah.
So especially tribal people, that's like ghost in the lines. I don't want it. It's going to steal my soul. So
here come the downloads.
that's hyperbole. Don't get upset about that. But yeah,
our audience does not understand hyperbole.
No, it's almost like they have some sort of social limitations. There should be a word for that. Well, we all talk about how important VPNs are, especially in the day and age of everyone tracking everything that you do. But this seems like it might be, as we like to say on the Level 1 News, a bit of a slippery slope when it comes to VPNs.
U.S. senators asked DHS to look into U.S. government workers using foreign VPNs. Senators are alarmed that U.S. government workers may be sending sensitive traffic to China or Russia. Yeah, I mean, this seemed like, for a normie, like I could imagine my grandma reading this and saying, yeah, we should probably look into that. But then it's like, well, wait, if they're going to be able to look into government workers' VPNs, they're going to be able to look into everybody's VPNs.
Or, as they often do, just a blanket statement. It's like, oh, VPNs are bad. Yeah. Now, they are not wrong, because the problem here is that there are a lot of free VPNs. Now, how do you pay for a free VPN service? Well, you might get some money from the Chinese government. And it turns out a lot of those VPNs go through China. They are for sure stealing your data and watching you. Yeah. But something like private internet access, who we happen to have a referral program for on our support page on the website.
Level1text.com/support.
But we don't tell you to use private internet access because we have a referral program. We tell you because in court they've proven they don't keep logs and they don't track you because they've been subpoenaed and they're like, we can't do it.
Now, does this also imply that U.S. government workers not using VPNs, we can see all their stuff so we don't need to worry about it? In which case, that's also terrifying.
Yeah, well, if they were telling them, hey, you need to use better VPNs, then I would say, okay, that's good advice. But then if we talk about, it's like, just don't use VPNs. So I don't think they...
So we can see what you're doing? And it's like, oh, there's a surveillance apparatus.
Oh, actually, I think it would be great if we could see what the government was doing.
No, that will never happen.
Should be open government. Yeah, that's a weird concept, huh? Well, the one thing about the government is it's interesting because, government technology, they have no idea what's going on 99% of the time. But they have latched on to one new technology, and it's in everything you read now, and that's 5G.
Yeah, U.S. has warned its European allies not to use Chinese gear for 5G networks. This story is starting to get really interesting. The United States sees the European Union as its top priority in a global effort to convince allies not to buy Huawei equipment. It wasn't just Huawei, it was ZTE as well.
It's always they always mention them together.
Yeah.
So yeah, this, of course, Huawei, obviously the U.S. government is against them. But in Europe, I don't think they completely buy into all that.
Yeah.
And obviously Canada is having their doubts despite arresting the CFO. So it seems like we're using our political clout to further attack Huawei.
I worry about, on the surface, it seems plausible, but it seems plausible in the way that, the supply chain bugging of super micro devices seems plausible. But there doesn't seem to be a lot to that because there have been a lot of companies with super micro equipment that have done a lot of deep forensic analysis of their equipment, and statistically, it was not, if any equipment was actually affected, like as described in the Bloomberg article, it was not a significant percentage of equipment, statistically.
But that's not the only benefit. Having your companies getting all these contracts is good for your economy. Mm-hmm. So there could be other reasons, even though they don't want to say that's what those reasons are, for doing this.
Yes. Yeah. I guess that's kind of, what other explanation is there?
Well, the other explanation is just stirring people up, giving them an enemy that they can understand.
The outrage machine.
Yeah. And it's easy to campaign on fear.
Yeah.
So why not do it? We've talked a lot on Level 1 News about public records. Freedom of information is a constant thing that we talk about. You get these big juicy releases. Of course, they're usually just blacked out completely. But in the age of GDPR and all these different kinds of rules about being open, they have to resort to trickier tactics, which is what this story's about.
Attacking a paywall that hides public court filings. So they're talking about the system that we have here in America for the federal government, the court filings. And so some filings are hidden behind a system called Pacer, and that charges 10 cents per page, but that doesn't really make sense anymore. The technology has progressed to the point where 10 cents a page is wildly profitable.
Even during the time when they would have to print them and mail them, 10 cents a page was profitable. But now, they estimated what it was like a 1/4 of 1,000th of a cent per page was the real cost. And the Supreme Court has adopted a completely free system, and that's working fine. So yeah, these people are going after, it's not a private company. They use that money as kind of a slush fund. But they've talked about buying like big screen TVs for jury rooms and paying bills and stuff out of that money. So it's probably not necessary. Now, the revolving door of corporations and government. That's another big topic.
What do we mean when we say revolving door?
Well, see, the thing is, you go into one, and then you leave and you go back to the other one. But then you might go back again. And the problem is, one side is supposed to be keeping the other side in line. But if you're going to be switching sides in 3 years and you know that, will you fight?
Yes.
Well, we know Tom Wheeler did it. Colin Powell's son. What's his name?
Oh, I can't remember. I don't know.
He's a pal. He was also FCC chair. He is now the lead lobbyist for the telecom firms. Pai, without question, will go back to them.
The revolving door was spinning so fast its bearings melted.
We could power the entire Earth off of that revolving door when Pai goes back and forth, because there's no chance he's not. And now we have another name.
Mignon Clyburn, no, you were the chosen one. Democrat Mignon Clyburn they're advising the T-Mobile Sprint merger on how to navigate the waters for merger in order to have T-Mobile and Sprint merge. You were the chosen one.
This is a merger she voted against, but now she's for it.
No, I think it was the AT&T Sprint merger, wasn't it?
I don't know.
I think it was the AT&T Sprint merger that she voted, and it's because T-Mobile wasn't part of the equation, and now it's like.
But the argument was it's good to have more competition in that realm. Taking one out is a bad thing no matter how you slice it. But, of course, she is now able to use her expertise to tell them, this is how you get through all these loopholes. I know, because I made them. And she's probably making quite a bit of money. Meanwhile, Powell is still there. He's still part of this equation. So they have two former FCC chairs in their pockets.
No.
What are you going to do? You're going to pay a lot for internet services. What are you going to do? For a while, I was using Waze. You ever use that?
Yes.
And it's got a really cool feature where you can just sort of tap a button and tell it that you're experiencing something in the area, like a car accident or a police checkpoint. That's totally legal. That's free speech. You're allowed to call your buddy up and be like, hey, there's cops here. Be careful. But the NYPD doesn't seem to want to admit that.
The New York Post says that the New York Police Department is telling Google to stop revealing the locations of police checkpoints. Absolutely a free speech issue.
Yeah, so they're saying that if a drunk driver kills somebody because they avoided a checkpoint because they were using Waze, then that would be Alphabet's fault. But is it really?
No.
It's a drunk driver's fault.
Yes.
We're blaming the gun here. So, yeah, Google, to their defense, has been silent about it, but they have not removed the feature.
Yeah, New York, the place that brought you stop and frisk.
I stopped using Waze, though, because I'm a little weird about being tracked constantly. Of course, I've got the Google phone on me, so there's some level of that happening.
Yeah.
But I just actually registered my car with their little, service tracking thing. And if you dig through the setup, it's like, oh, by the way, we've opted you into all these insurance programs and safe driving tracking and congratulations. And you turn them off and they're like, wait, well, you shouldn't turn this off. This is really good for you.
You definitely should turn that off.
Well, we talk about the revolving door, and it's not just the FCC that has a revolving door. You can come from parts of government and go right into none other than Facebook.
A former White House security chief is deleting Facebook pages that criticize governments. So I read this headline and I was like, surely that's not what's actually happening.
That's exactly what is happening. So this guy was Obama's security chief for 4 years, the 08 to 16, or no, wait, was it? It might have been the whole time. Anyway, he then went to Facebook as part of their fighting fake news team.
Well, because government criticism is obviously fake news.
Right, yeah. He focuses squarely on government criticism. Now, they don't say that they're removing these because they're criticizing the government. They say they're removing them because not even that they're wrong, but just that they're using these blanket tactics. Like they accuse those Russian people of you're just posting everywhere to stir everybody up. But one of the people who got banned pointed out, it's like, read any social media strategy book. You post everywhere. That's what you do. That's common practice. Everybody does it. So it seems like they might be targeting based on the message.
Well, it also seemed like from some of the examples that they were targeting messages that were getting traction. So it's like if you're a crazy person and you're just posting, horrible things that have been done to you, that's okay. But as soon as it gets like 100 likes or whatever, it's like, no, we got to take that down and then shoot first and ask questions later kind of thing.
Yeah. A lot of people argue that that's why Alex Jones was allowed to operate freely for so long, is because he had a big audience, but nobody really took any of those people seriously.
Yeah.
And then with Trump, they sort of got this feeling, it's like, wait a minute, he might actually be able to affect things. And next thing you know, he was off every platform. So
this is, well, I mean, how can, the logical conclusion of that is that you are unhappy with the political situation and you look at a platform you control and it's like, did I create this? Are people that dumb? Do I have to help people not be dumb? And it's helping people not be dumb in the most egregiously But it's as offensive and arrogant as the whole, like, we have to help these poor minorities because they'll never be able to help them. Poor little things. Us brilliant white folk need to step in and defend them. It's that same kind of hypocrisy. And but it's happening. So, I mean, if you get your news from Facebook, you're already lost to us. But good news about if
that.
you're German.
Well, it's going to affect the whole EU, I think. If you're in one, if you're worried about the Facebook people who've already fallen under the spell, maybe they won't be taken further.
Facebook ordered to stop combining WhatsApp and Instagram data without consent in Germany. Now, last week and I think the week before, we reported that Facebook is working on consolidating all these apps because, remember WhatsApp is something that Facebook bought because they could see the writing on the wall and see which direction things were headed. And more recently, it turns out that Facebook could literally see the writing on the wall because they were spying on teenagers that opted into some kind of VPN program. So Facebook is basically, it's like the board. They're assimilating WhatsApp into everything else. So if you want to keep using WhatsApp, you got to use their platform. But the EU, under the whole GDPR thing, is saying, well, now, no. Users did not agree to that. You can't just sweep them up and take them along. You've got to get them to agree to these changes to your platform.
They also talk about how, and I don't agree with this at all, but they say that Facebook it's important for life. Like, the argument is the only opt-out strategy here is to not use Facebook. But it's impossible in the modern world to not use Facebook, which I think is a scary thought.
Yeah.
I don't use Facebook. I'm fine. I'm getting along. So,
yeah, I would tend to agree with that. I mean, there are other services that can be used, but
they argue that none would have the reach, which I guess is true.
But it doesn't necessarily mean that. I guess the EU's position is that if you have a platform that is that successful, you have some responsibilities to humanity, which seems a little idealistic.
But I think they are right, perhaps for the wrong reasons. This shouldn't happen. But it shouldn't happen because these products were purchased under the guise of, hey, we're going to merge all this together, but they're going to keep their autonomy.
Yeah.
And then he systematically forced out every one of those CEOs. So this is kind of like one of those telecommunications mergers.
Yeah.
Are we going to have to start saying oversight for social media mergers?
Maybe.
We talked a lot about, what was the name of the Chinese nephew that you came up with who always did the programming for the smart devices? Heesung. This is definitely a perfect example of Heesung. Because this is a product that is an Internet of Things product that uses an app that this company didn't create. They 100% outsourced it to Heesung. They don't control it at all.
The EU has ordered a recall of a children's smartwatch over severe privacy concerns. The EU warns that the Enox SafeKid 1 smartwatches contain several security flaws that led third parties to track and call children's watches. So it turns out that there's not security flaws. Security flaws implied that there was some attempt at security in the first place. Right. That is not the case.
Unencrypted, unauthenticated endpoint communicating with an app created by a Chinese company, owned by a Chinese company, not this company. So they just sold the watches, and I just told the Chinese, it was like, hey, there's just no authentication. Just build an app. But you could call this same API with your own tools if you wanted to. Track the kids, make calls from the watch, send SMS from the watch, listen to the kids. It was pretty much a nightmare. It's sad that this is like the bar of when to recall something. Because how could it get any worse? I guess if it burst into flame.
The battery recall. It is the first on the first read through of the article, it almost sounded like the Chinese company that was tasked with building the app was like, something's not right here. This is not like super secured. It's like that's really unusual for those contractors.
But yeah, I would think the Chinese company would be like, oh, free data on children. All right, we'll do that. Yeah, that sounds good. No charge. I don't know. Is it Filin, you think? Filin?
This thing? Yeah,
not sure where the emphasis goes on that word. But it's I guess weapon is a good, what we'd call it. But it's has some hilarious side effects.
Filin, Russian Navy unveils a new weapon that will make the enemy hallucinate and vomit. So they put a bunch on their warships, and apparently it's like the brown note, except that it's the V note.
Well, you have to be looking at it. That's why I question whether or not it's a weapon. I think it's a defensive system. So the idea is it would be hard to target something if this were visible. Because especially if you're looking down a scope, this thing just messes you up. Like it operates on the same idea of a strobe light, where it tricks the mind, but it does it in such a way that you're just unable to focus on anything, and you might piss your pants and vomit.
Neat.
So, it also
night vision. It destroys,
and missile tracking. The optical stuff on missiles can't deal with it either. Surprisingly.
Interesting. Time to get some on the black market and work on some countermeasures.
I was, this is a terrible website, MacRumors. I was going to get Krista to rate this stock photo. I think it's a really good stock photo.
I feel like she would do like 2 out of 3, maybe 3 out of 3, because that's the French flag, obviously. And, but it's the Apple logo, so.
Maybe if it weren't on a white background.
Yeah, that would probably help it a lot.
But that's not the story here. The story is about taxes.
Apple reaches a deal with France to pay an estimated $571 million. Yeah, $571 million in back taxes. So this is the whole like France, EU, App Store, operate in France, whatever. $571 million. So they're just going to pay it.
Why not? It's not like they can't afford it. They'll make that back quickly from those French people.
Yeah.
I bet the yellow vest movement is like data rates are just skyrocketing because you have to coordinate on the weekend. You're watching on your phone.
I wonder if like after Apple pays this, that they're just quietly going to tack on more fees in like the App Store transactions. Like, okay, $571 million. Let's claw that back over the next 2 years. Increase transaction costs to compensate.
Yeah, I'm sure they have a plan for that. We talk a lot about third-party breakdown and security. So these big data leaks, a lot of the time, it's not the government necessarily losing the data. It's not the big corporation losing the data. It's a third party. It's a law firm or an analytics service or something like that. And it seems like the Chinese have seen the writing on the wall and they're like, yeah, we're wasting our time going after the government. Let's just go after the third parties.
Yeah. So China has hacked Norway's Visma to steal client secrets, according to investigators. So Visma is like the Norwegian version of like Lockheed Martin or Boeing, I gather. And they work on stuff for the Norwegian government, and so that's the stuff that's been stolen.
Well, it's claimed that they didn't get anything that belonged to a client. They got in, and they got some stuff from Visma itself, but they weren't able to break through to the clients that they have. But it's sort of, they might have. It's a situation where it's like, what could they have done? And it could have been really bad. All those Norwegian secrets.
Well, I think that in the Western business, like all you have to do is just do business with those companies. Is like hire the company to actually do work for you, and you will learn everything that you need to learn about their internal infrastructure and how they operate.
Gotta be careful. Be careful who your third party is. Well, moving on to Facebook. The Facebook news for 2019 continues to be poor, although they did have those decent earnings, which was
I think that's going to be
surprising.
short-lived. I think the next few quarters is just going to be like catastrophic, like Harry Carey.
Well, this could play into that, which is even more investigations.
Gizmodo has this story. Report. Attorneys general in 6 states are now investigating Facebook's data practices.
Boiler Snake is part of this class action suit. Some of his nudes popped up. It was revenge porn on Facebook. And they were like, listen, that policy doesn't apply to snakes. And he is furious about that.
He's right up there with Bezos.
Yeah. He's so he's very upset. And we were like, Boiler Snake, you listen every week. Why do you use Facebook? And he just hisses. He won't discuss it. This is wait a minute. No, we didn't move to social. We're still in government. That was a government story because it was states investigating, which explains why we're still talking about government when we talk about Congress.
Congress has flaunted its ignorance in a House hearing on net neutrality. Yeah, I mean, there's not really any other way to say it. You remember the Facebook testimony? And it was like, oh, wow, all these people that are trying to talk to Zuckerberg, like he was like, I get the feeling that like when Zuckerberg was testifying before Congress, it was like one of those episodes of Star Trek where like Data sits down at the terminal and the computer's like showing him stuff and he just keeps saying increase, and it's just all this stuff flying around. And so Zuckerberg went into those meetings with that level of preparation, and the senators just had like ABC blocks and were asking him dumb, nonsensical questions. And it was just a walk in the park for him.
Well, he did seem confused by it. It's like
confused by their stupidity, maybe.
He had his shields tuned to energy weapons, but they were launching mortars. And he was like, "What sort of technology is this? I don't understand it."
So yeah, they didn't know. It was evident they didn't know anything about technology, and this is even worse.
But more importantly, they used their time to grandstand rather than actually try to get to the bottom of anything. So TechCrunch this is a very long article, and they sort of just like go person by person and tear them apart. One of the big arguments was Title II.
Yeah.
And the fact that it was at the 30s we came up with Title II.
Yeah, and they made a big show about like the guy. They had a picture of the guy from the 30s, and it's like, should his stuff apply to stuff that he couldn't even conceive of? And it's just like, what are you even doing?
But of course, they don't seem to understand or just conveniently leave out. It was basically completely rewritten in 96.
Yeah.
So the 30s stuff doesn't apply anymore. They also talk about how there was a lot of partisanship, just blaming across the aisle for various things rather than blaming the telecommunication companies. So
Tom Wheeler was there. His testimony, or the stuff that they talked about Tom Wheeler, was also pretty interesting. And Tom Wheeler was part of it. Like they were kind of grandstanding with Tom Wheeler, and he was like trying to explain his reasoning for stuff, and they just cut him off and were like, no.
Well, they pointed out one guy was like, he listed like 40 bullet points, and then he was like, yes or no, Mr. Wheeler?
Yeah.
And I was like, well, that's not a yes or no question. So it shows that, I don't think I think the politicians are stupid. Uninformed. They're not stupid. They're cunning and evil. But they are very uninformed simply because they don't care.
Yeah.
This is not important to them. What's important to them is getting reelected. Which is why they're there in the first place, because people do care about this.
Yeah.
Some people do, at least.
You think that it's like, the electorate will really like if I grandstand and make a big show of things. And it's like, no, this is just...
Well, yeah, it's like they're talking to their aides, and they're like, how can I trend on the Reddit? And it's like, well, let's grill Verizon for 20 minutes, Yeah.
Instead of how can I trend on the Reddit, it's like, how can I appear on the Level 1 news appearing as dumb as a sack of potatoes?
Yeah, I don't think they're aware of us. But
I can dream.
One of the problems with that is that on the Reddit, there were probably a lot of threads. It's like, oh, we're doing something. Because those rose-colored glasses, yeah, it might make you feel good, but it's actually counterproductive.
Yeah.
You have to accept how dark the world is to brighten it. There's a quote that you can put on a T-shirt. Well, we talked about Huawei and their woes with the U.S. government. And it seems like every week, Trump just inches it forward just a little bit more.
Yeah. So CNBC has this headline: Trump is reportedly expected to ban Chinese telecommunication equipment from U.S. networks. Yeah, that's going to be, like, it depends on how deep that rabbit hole goes, because that could be really bad.
I can't imagine that you would get rid of that in a short amount of time.
Well, is it components made in China? Is it software made in China? You know, what are we doing here? Because I got news for him. A lot of that Juniper stuff.
Also, what's the punishment going to be? Because if you're like, well, I don't know what kind of modem we've got in this ancient thing here. Like, well, do we have to tear it all out, or do we face giant fines? That'll be a bit of a mess. But again, it is definitely playing to his base.
I think that the better thing to do would be for world governments to agree that when they find a backdoor or an intelligence operation, like suppose that some world government compromised the random number generator or a piece of telecom equipment or whatever, that all of the details, all of the classified details, whatever, of that were published publicly, so that everybody could analyze not just the attack, but the style of the attack, so we could find it and fix it.
You are on the level of Congress with your nonsense right now. You know that will never happen. Yeah. Can never happen.
It should.
That's like coming out and being like, hey guys, let's just quit spying. We'll just tell you everything. Tell you all our secrets.
I can dream, can't I? No, I don't know.
Got to take off those glasses. You have to see the darkness.
Speaking of seeing the darkness.
Well, you know, this could lead to some darkness. I think this kind of points out, anytime we talk about, you know, this is great for engagement, because anytime you talk about the Second Amendment, you're going to get a lot of engagement. But the purpose, the greatest thing about the Second Amendment is not that you can protect your family or that you can have fun shooting guns. It's that the government is terrified of it. All governments terrified of it. I mean, look at France. What would the yellow vests look like if they had guns?
That would be scary.
We would already have a French Revolution. Yeah. That would have already happened. And that's why these cases continue to go on.
Ars Technica says, just when an end seemed near, 2 3D printed gun file legal battles get a new life. Defense Distributed takes gun legal fight to New Jersey, and as Washington case will continue. So is the Attorney General in New Jersey is basically freaking out that you can download a 3D printable file for like a one-shot rifle. And a pipe rifle would be better.
Defense Distributed is in Texas. So it's very convoluted. The New Jersey case was paused because Defense Distributed thought that the Trump administration was going to rule. Somehow. They have not. So now a judge has declared that is going to go on, but they also, in Texas, filed a case about them taking the links down without having won the case. But the Texas judge said, I'm not going to hear this because I'm a Texas judge and this is New Jersey. But now there's a Washington case because New Jersey has ordered Cloudflare to take down the links on another site. I think, is that how you interpreted all that?
Yeah.
So
but it was Cloudflare servers physically located in Jersey.
It's a tangled web. But the point is, there isn't any ruling, but the government is still blocking these files preemptively.
Cloudflare did actually take down the files in Jersey, but there are redirects for those files for the other servers not in Jersey. So you can still get them.
Yeah. Wouldn't recommend it. But I think those are fairly unsafe. But, you know, people could use them to go on to. I mean, I think, you know, we talk about those old, like the World of Tomorrow, you know, documentaries like the Disney thing that they had. And nobody got it right. Because we had computers when they made those, but no one saw, it was like, no, computers are going to be tiny and everybody's going to have one in their pocket.
Yeah.
Like they just couldn't get their mind around that. But I think there's a good chance that 3D printing is sort of like that now.
Yeah.
It's like 3D printing is just it's a goofy thing. I mean, what are you going to do with this? This is useless.
It's so cool.
But it does not have a use.
Yeah.
I mean, it might be watertight. It might not be. It might not continue to be once you start using it. But think about from the giant, you know, room-sized computers down to the microprocessors of today. If manufacturing follows that into the home, that's going to change everything.
Yeah.
And it's certainly going to enable you to make a gun.
I would like a 3D food printer. Like, that might be the thing that comes to life first.
The food would have to be so processed, though.
Yeah.
And what we're learning about processed food, how it's killing us.
Yay, cancer.
Now, if you could just, like, raise some cows and just go, cut a piece off of it, put that in a printer, maybe.
I just watched a cow in my mind, in my imagination, walk into a 3D printer room, and I heard the chipper shredder noise.
You're just shoveling vegetables in there, and then you march the cow and the chickens in, and you flip a switch, and 8 hours later, fully loaded printer.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Well, now we're switching to design, which don't expect us to have a lot of insight on this. Although this story was interesting, not so much for the design portion of it, but how they're using the store design with technology.
How Lush is using AR, augmented reality, to change the way you buy bath bombs. So you watch this video and you just get an idea that the guy that runs the place is just freakishly tall, which is pretty cool. But they've got a wall of bath bombs in their store, and it's like, oh, you can relax, and it's just.
I was trying to find a picture of the store.
It's just
these guys talk. Yeah. Oh, here we go.
I had no idea.
So you can see. Oh, thanks for these related videos. That's exactly what I want. So there are no prices. There are no names. There's just walls of little bath bombs, and you use your phone to take a picture of the bath bomb, which then loads all the details, preview videos, and a price, and then you buy it through the phone. What do you think one of those costs?
Too much. There's too many varieties.
I bet there's $25 starting point for those things.
I'm pretty sure the only bath, it's just Epsom salts. What else could it be?
Well, there's all sorts of scents and colors. Did you see the one that shot out a rainbow? That was popular this week. So you can, it looks like a cloud, and when you put it in, it shoots a perfect rainbow out of the bottom of the cloud. But of course, as you know, as Krista would tell us if she was here, that turns the water black because it's all the colors.
Yeah.
But yeah, that one, I think that one was $14.
No, that's too much for a bath bomb.
Well, what price isn't?
Is this also the thing that people get high on? Because I read that was a problem.
That's bath salts.
Oh, okay.
That's a totally different product.
I had to ask.
Well, this story, once again, is design, but this was more social commentary, I guess. Rather than show the headline, I'm just going to show the picture over here.
These are from Gucci. So, yeah, Gucci's got a new whatever this is.
They look so stupid. But I think part of what makes them look stupid is they got that, serious model face going on. If they were smiling, it wouldn't look as bad.
I'm pretty sure these were shopped in. I don't even think that these are real.
No, these are real.
I mean the pictures.
Oh, possibly. But they actually did a runway show with these. Wow. So they showed them off. Now, if you're wondering what's weird about it, so they pulled these.
Gucci's not offering these for sale.
Well, they were.
And the Time headline is, they have pulled the black balaclava after blackface comparisons.
So, yeah, the idea is, it's a clever idea. You pull that up, sort of turtleneck, but you just pull it up and you get protection. But the big red lips and the black surrounding face reminded some people of the old days of, when they used to do the blackface on TV. It's a stupid design. I don't know if my mind would immediately go there.
I don't think so either.
Either way, you're not going to get it.
Well, I wonder if that's going to be $1 million Gucci product. It's they only made 50 of them worldwide.
I wonder if they shipped any. Because they did the fashion show and no one cared. But as soon as it went on sale online, the outrage began.
Yeah, it's going to be on eBay for $1 million.
Well, they probably didn't ship any of them.
Going to be in a museum. It belongs in a museum.
I feel like you could probably make your own if you know anything about making sweaters, right?
Oh, but then it's definitely racist. This is accidentally racist.
Well, you also have to wonder, it seems like a stretch to think this is racist, but did anybody inside of Gucci, even for a moment, think this could be a problem?
No. How would you say that there's a certain class of person out there who would look at anything, and if they can twist it slightly into something and suggest that it's racist, that they enjoy creating that kind of disruption from being like, oh my gosh, look at that. That's what this is.
I would say that surpassed baseball as the national pastime sometime mid-2018.
So I think we've got our answer then.
Well, you're going to have a cold face, but you won't have a racist face. So, good news. And we'll see you tomorrow when we talk about business and maybe a little bit of social media. I don't remember. I think it's social media.
See ya. It's one day before Valentine's Day, so it's February 13th.
It's your last chance.
Today's hardware news and business news and that kind of stuff.
If you're buying jewelry today, forget it.
If you're buying pretty much anything today, forget it.
Yeah, candy. Now, tomorrow, that's the day to buy candy at the end of the day. Well, now you probably have to wait till the next day, right?
Yeah, so last year I was really upset because Walmart did not discount the candy until the 15th.
That makes sense because you could still show up. Anyway, Valentine's Day is a late holiday because if you're dating, that's the night.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
We're going to go to dinner together. No.
Netflix and chill.
It's going to be a record amount of pizza and delivery food ordered and delivered.
I wonder if Pizza Hut did the heart-shaped pizza last year. You remember that?
Oh,
and people tweeted the pictures of the terrible heart shapes that they weren't really able to do.
They were made by unskilled labor.
Because I don't think they had a template. They just tried to do it by hand. And then once it came out of the oven, not good. Also not good, based on which side of the equation you're looking at it from, is another major price cut from Tesla.
Model 3 price cut for the second time this year. Oh no, Tesla's doing the price cuts. Now this was to make up for something else. So really the price is staying the same because you don't get other discounts that you used to. The subsidy and something else.
Well, it's better because this was a referral that's going away. Yeah. But you weren't necessarily going to use the referral.
Yeah.
So the referral went away. I don't think that was the only thing I think that's the excuse.
Yeah.
I think they're dropping the price because the demand is not there.
They need to sell more.
And in the earnings call, which wasn't great, where they talked about they're dropping 7% of the workforce, he emphasized that they had to do everything they can to cut costs because the cost of the cars were killing them. They still have not got it down to a good price where they make a good margin. So we'll see. And in further bad news, now I remember it was back in 2018 when the winter was pretty mild. But in Michigan, of course, certain parts of Michigan, it stays
super cold, yeah.
And that's where the electric guy lives. And it was surprising because he actually came out and he was like, you all know I love Tesla. I'm basically, some sort of zealot for Tesla. But here in the cold Michigan, weird things are happening. Like the doors wouldn't open. So they've had to do some things to make it a little bit more cold weather friendly, but have they done enough?
AAA confirms what Tesla, BMW, and Nissan electric owners and others have suspected. Cold weather saps the electric vehicle range. Even turning on the car drains power. So yeah, batteries are cold. It's not going to work as well. There are heaters to heat the batteries, but those also use power.
Yeah, so across the board testing, I think it was below 20 degrees, you could lose 41% of your range out of your fully charged battery.
There's also a lot of other little annoying things, like the handles get stuck and the windows get stuck.
Well, they supposedly fixed that. So the I guess it's the Model S, has the windows that don't have frames on the top. They just push up into the weatherproofing. The fix was they don't push up as far. So the weatherproofing isn't as good. Weird fix.
That's the fix for cold weather.
And the handles don't sink all the way down because, again,
they could be frozen.
That's the fix. So, and also that 41% does not take into account you running the heater as you drive. Yeah. So you probably would in less than 20 degree weather.
We should install a small chemical reactor to offset the... Oh, wait.
Yeah, that sounds safe. Now, my car has a giant engine. And when that thing has been burning for a while, it uses the supplements the cabin heat off of that thing. You could roast steaks coming out of those vents. I mean, it's like you almost can't have a good middle ground. It's either the temperature of the sun or off. But hey, it's nice and warm. Not going to get that in a Tesla. And another thing that may be keeping Mr. Musk up at night is this new program.
FreedomEV. Yes, you can root your Tesla and run Linux on it, like Linux natively. It has a cloak mode, so it turns off all the tracking and all the other stuff. You can take control of your vehicle, not Musk.
Right, and this also helps when you rebuild a wrecked Tesla, because obviously that's not an easy thing to do, and you might wait 6 months to have it fixed. But if you can do it yourself, you can root it and take control of it without having them do all the various things.
Neat.
Pretty cool. It's like one guy doing this.
Yeah.
And he has open sourced it.
I wonder if Tesla will just hire him to make it go away.
That would be the smart thing to do. But I don't know if he's for hire. Can he be corrupted?
Yes, I'm sure that he can. It's just a matter of what amount of money.
Well, it is a trend in the video card world to iterate up with your numbers. Every series goes up to a new number. But based on this trend, will we now have to iterate down to match the size?
I don't know. AMD Radeon 7 review, performance benchmarks with 7nm Vega. This is from Hot Hardware. So there are tons and tons of benchmarks and all kinds of interesting stuff for Radeon 7. It's basically the 7nm Radeon Instinct MI60, 50, that was released last year. It's like 60 CUs, I think. The performance is pretty good. It's on par with the RTX 2080, but it's got 16 gigs of really high performance HBM2. It's approximately the same price. A lot of people are kind of upset that it's not, fast. AMD's not offering anything faster than a 2080 Ti, but it's looking like the Radeon 7 is going to be great for content creators and people that need 16 gigabytes of HBM2 memory.
It's always the case with AMD, and maybe this is calculated, but they just simply compete in the performance area. Like, they'll put out a card, might be a little cheaper, although this one's not. This one's the exact same price.
HBM2 is crazy expensive.
And they'll get as good as the stock NVIDIA. But then you've got all these overclocked, overcooled versions that are going to beat it. And AMD seems happy. It's like, well, we don't really care about that round.
If they're unloading their inventory that wasn't good enough to be like the Instinct cards, then this makes sense. And I think that AMD is also sort of learning the pipeline. I mean, NVIDIA is a much larger company, so AMD is going to struggle a little bit in software and development and things like that. And we see that in the enterprise with like ROCm versus CUDA and some of the machine learning stuff. But in terms of like raw performance, these cards are insanely fast, especially the new Radeon 7. But I really think the performance benefit for it is going to be for content creators rather than gamers. Like, it's at parity from gaming, but I think for content creators, they're going to have a significantly better experience. I got to test that though.
They also talk about, AMD has a history of unlocking more performance as time goes by.
Yeah.
And they felt like there was some potential for these. Of course, that's not a good reason to buy a video card.
No.
It's like, hey, maybe it'll get faster. But
Polaris has held up well by comparison, but, time will tell.
Well, you talk about the supply chain and how NVIDIA is better at it. But are they? They made a bit of a stumble with the end of cryptocurrency and that mania. And so much of one that it seems like the rats might be heading for the exits.
SoftBank sells its entire $3.6 billion NVIDIA investment. This flew under the radar of a lot of people. But yeah, SoftBank, remember, had invested a whole bunch of money in NVIDIA. They've sold everything. So I think that they're looking at the writing on the wall, and they're looking at where NVIDIA's margins came from. And a lot of that had to do with cryptocurrency. Some of it may be that, some analysts have said that maybe it is understated just how much 10 series graphics card inventory NVIDIA has left. Maybe that factored in here.
Yeah, well,
don't know.
We'll see. Now that AMD has an alternative that's a little bit better than the 10 series stuff.
Except for the flagship card.
Of course, with the prices.
Yeah. Enjoy your $1,500 graphics card. It's like...
it doesn't make any sense. Well, we talked last episode about the cable lobby and how it is overwhelmingly made up of revolving door FCC employees, and that they make some arguments that are nonsensical, I guess is a kind of an understatement, and this is certainly one of those.
Cable lobby asks for net neutrality law allowing paid prioritization. That's not what a neutral net necessarily means.
But what you're ignoring here, you're being biased. There's a public benefit. What is the public benefit? No one's saying.
I think that the proof's in the pudding here. So if you look at what happened with Comcast and Netflix, Comcast acted as if it had the authority to not throttle. Let's be clear. They always said we're not throttling Netflix. They just allowed their peering links to become congested. And so a lot of the disingenuous terminology that the telecommunications company used when a service like Netflix became popular on their network, it was to just allow their upstream links to become congested. Basically, they were not buying enough capacity to satisfy their customers, which they should be responsible for doing since they're an internet supplier. It would be like, I don't know, a watermelon salesman selling everybody watermelon, but most people don't actually collect the watermelon. And then some people are like, hey, I would like watermelon. It's in vogue, and then they don't have enough watermelon. So I don't know. Anyway, it's falling apart. Anyway.
You're using the you wouldn't steal a car argument. I don't think it holds up. You're correct, but your argument is flawed.
Yeah. There's definitely, their argument is just, it's so wrong that it makes me want to have an aneurysm.
They don't have an argument. They were not able to name one way that would be a benefit for the public.
What it comes down to is the ISP wants to charge the public for access to its network, and it wants to charge people on the internet for access to its network. And it's like, I'm sorry, you don't, that's not how that works. You don't get to charge both parties.
But it kind of is how it works.
Yeah.
Because they have the government in their pocket.
Yeah.
Oh, well. We'll see how that plays out. It seems like there's enough of a backlash against it. The internet is enough ingrained in our lives that even the politicians are figuring out, it's like, okay, we have to pander to this, which is good. You know, that's something, maybe. The other thing that the big tech companies are finding out is that these new EU fines are adding up quickly.
Google now pays more money in EU fines than it pays in taxes. Google files 2018 revenues revealing that it pays about $900 million more in fines than it pays in taxes.
And of course, that's just in the EU. I don't think that's the case in America. But it's even more impressive considering the high tax rates over there. Of course, they're probably loopholing out of most of that.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is the data privacy stuff and the non-monopoly stuff.
GDPR was not in effect for all of 2018 either.
Yeah, and they're getting serious about it. So, of course, Google's still making plenty of money.
Yeah.
They can afford that. It's almost like it's just a new form of taxation. Now, what I wonder is, where is that fine money going? Is that just going straight into the government coffers?
Yeah, just like operational expenses.
Yeah, that's disgusting. It's funding the bureaucracy to make more fines.
Yeah.
Which is just like, it's a cancer that's feeding itself.
Speaking of cancers feeding themselves.
Well, there's two schools of thought here. Would you be happy if we got an Amazon distribution center right here in town?
It would make things go fast when you order stuff.
I would not, just based on traffic. So
what if it was like just a little bit outside town?
Nah, because they would all live here. And they all shop here, and they're here on the weekends when I want to drive fast. And that's not acceptable. The people in New York, now this is a Washington Post article, so they get into some of like the social justice reasons, but there are a lot of people who don't want Amazon. So
the Washington Post says, facing opposition, Amazon reconsiders its New York headquarters site, two officials are saying. So Amazon was planning to bring 25,000 jobs to its New York City campus, but what do you call that? Gentrification? It's going to need to buy some neighborhoods, and like it's going to tear a bunch of stuff down.
Well, the housing costs. Wow. Because you're bringing in 25,000 moderately paid people who are going to need to live somewhere. And also, the subsidies were like $3 billion.
Yeah.
New York was going to give them $3 billion. Some people are bucking against that. So they just elected this, or they appointed a new guy to some kind of oversight committee who is staunchly anti-Amazon. And Amazon's stance is basically, hey, we see what you're doing here. we'll walk away, bro. We don't care. We'll walk away. Look at Virginia. Virginia loves us. We will go where we are loved. And some of the other people who organized the deal, they're like, no, please, Amazon.
And Jeff Bezos having his own private helicopter corridor through New York City, I mean, that seems reasonable.
Why not? Why not? He is, after all. He's not the world's richest man still, is he? Or no, the company's not the number one company anymore.
Yeah.
And soon to be halved his wealth. I'm sure he will. It'll probably take him at least 6 months to build back up to number one.
Foreshadowing.
So a lot of times I'll go on Amazon and I'll be looking at a product that is sold by that company. Because, it tells you who sells it. But then you'll look at the reviews and somebody's like, they sent me a box of bricks. And it's like, well, that was clearly another seller. So I don't know if they just consolidate the reviews, but it makes me paranoid now. Because it's like, am I going to get a counterfeit product? It seems to be a big problem.
Is that company real? It's like, Amazon has finally admitted to investors that it has a counterfeit problem. There's multiple layers to this counterfeiting problem too. As people who order a lot from Amazon, you can get products that are clones of real products, where it's like you get the product and it looks like it's a real product. It's not a real product. You can also get a bag of bricks. You can also be thinking that you're ordering from like the legit seller, but it turns out like some scammer has set up their company name to be like it's the company that makes whatever that is, but that company's not actually doing business on Amazon.
Yeah, and it's such a big problem that Amazon, for the first time ever, has actually, during a conference call, admitted, yes, this is a problem, and no, we're not sure exactly what we're going to do about it.
Yeah. Because
what can you do about it?
So like working on the Level 1 KVM, we probably ordered 150 DisplayPort cables from Amazon, and about 12 of those were actually like correct spec DisplayPort cables. Everything else was trash. Even Amazon Basics. Like I think Amazon has been caught up in some of the counterfeiting, because we had some Amazon Basics cables that were definitely for sure not from Amazon and definitely like just basically garbage.
You know who I bet is just reaping huge benefits from this is Monster Cables. Because people are like, they were right. This is junk. I need the gold-plated stuff.
It's not that hard to get a DisplayPort cable right, but good Lord.
Well, speaking of Jeff Bezos, he, of course, is going through a divorce, a very public divorce. And we didn't really know that much about him privately.
Yeah.
Well, of course, you knew the public face of him and his Lex Luthor-like power, but we didn't know much about him privately. And now some really candid photos have leaked, and he's basically gone supervillain over it.
Jeff Bezos accuses the National Enquirer of blackmail and publishes apparent emails as evidence. So when you go down the rabbit hole on this one, it is super, super interesting. It seems like the National Enquirer was trying to blackmail Jeff Bezos. And now, of course, they deny that. But there's some really interesting stuff going on here. Like, how did they get this in the first place? And what's happening and that kind of thing.
Here's my favorite quote from this article.
If in my position, I can't stand up to this kind of extortion, how many people can?
Let me rephrase that for you. Do you know who the fuck I am?
I think they just miscalculated, because like most people in Bezos's position of power, like if they got an email and it's like, look, we know about the affair, we're going to expose it, blah, blah, blah. But he really took the thing by the horns and he's like, all right, I'm going to go public. I'm going to talk to my wife. I'm going to do this. We're going to figure all this out. I'm going to write a Medium post. He literally wrote his own post on Medium to like explain everything. I was like, holy crap, dude. I mean, he is like getting in front of it.
I think he is so just overwhelmingly head over heels for this new girl. That's the reason for all of this. Because it was like, oh, I'm divorcing you, Jeff, and I'm taking $70 billion. And he was like, all right. And then I'm like, Jeff, we've got nudes. We're releasing them. And he was, you have to pay us off. And he's like, no, you will not do anything to threaten my love. So, yeah, I think this will be bad for the Enquirer.
Yeah.
Certainly, he has an unlimited budget to sue them. So this is probably going to be in court for a little while.
I think also this might turn into being a good thing for encryption and privacy for Joe Average Citizen. Do you think he'll be like, no, we must like ensure that there's encryption and blah blah blah? Because
well, it's funny because he's claiming it wasn't. It was like state actors.
yeah,
And they could have used resources that no one else has. You know, they could have used the phone networks themselves.
yeah, that's what one of his investigators strongly suspects, that they got one of the phone network things and were using an unpublished exploit against his phone based on forensic investigation.
I wonder what kind of phone he uses.
I don't know. It's going to be interesting.
That'd be cool to find out.
I can't wait for the court case, because all that is probably not going to be sealed, and it's probably going to be real interesting.
It also shows you we are slaves to our genetics, and the fact that the world's richest man decided that it was an okay risk to send nudes over the phone. It doesn't matter how successful you are. You are not driving this boat. There's DNA. There's that urge to reproduce. That's driving the boat. You'll give up $70 billion. You'll take nudes as the world's most powerful man. Doesn't matter.
He gave up over 100 Woody Allens.
Well, Woody Allen, another man that was very motivated by lust and did some weird stuff. And the latest accusation has cost him quite a bit.
Woody Allen has sued Amazon for $68 million for refusing to release his films. So apparently Woody Allen had a deal with Amazon to do some films, and
well, they were going to buy his back catalog.
Because of accusations against Woody, they backed out. But he said, no, those accusations are old. There's nothing new in those. But the whole like Weinstein thing happened, and he's just like, no.
Well, do you know the story of Woody Allen? Okay, so this is going to take a little bit to explain, because it's a tangled web. So Woody Allen was married to Mia Farrow. Mia Farrow, from a previous marriage, had adopted Soon Yi. So Woody Allen marries. Soon Yi is a teenager. Okay? He becomes her father, her stepfather. Soon Yi reaches the age of 18, and the wife claims, Mia Farrow claims, that's when she found nude photos taken by Woody of the girl.
Well, I think, didn't the girl actually say that Woody Allen molested her and some other stuff?
No. You're getting ahead of yourself here. Soon Yi was all for it. So they then marry. He divorces Mia Farrow and marries Soon Yi, his stepdaughter.
Okay, I missed that.
They didn't mention that here. That's like a secret that nobody talks about. So he is currently married to Soon Yi. But they had another daughter, Dylan Farrow, also adopted, who has now come out as an adult, saying that Woody also molested her.
That makes a lot more sense.
Right. So not only does he have a history of accusations, he married his stepdaughter. He is currently married to his stepdaughter.
Well, and his position is that Amazon would have known that when they entered into the deal.
Right. And well, the accusations had surfaced before, but now the girl herself has written. She said, yes, this is true. So.
Well, it's going to be interesting to see how that one plays out.
It's amazing the hypocrisy of Hollywood. I don't know if any of it's true. I mean, well, he's married to, but she was not related. She was adopted and from a previous marriage. So, okay, fine.
But isn't he like 1 billion years old now?
He was 56 when she was 18.
Yes.
So, but she's still with him and supposedly happy. So maybe it's fine. But in the Me Too era, the fact that he gets away with it, it's kind of crazy. So I kind of understand what Amazon's doing here.
Amazon also had fired the guy that brokered the deal that worked for him, or worked for Amazon. So the Amazon employee that set all this up is out.
Interesting story. I wonder, do you think, I mean, I've watched some of his movies. I don't necessarily think they're as brilliant as a lot of people do. They're not bad. But how many more do you think he's got in it? You think Amazon Prime would benefit from?
No, the article mentioned that would be his like forever home for the rest of his career.
Yeah, all the rest of his movies would be Prime exclusives.
Yeah.
Which, I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, 5G or not 5G? That's the question. And the slings and arrows are coming from Sprint.
Sprint sues AT&T over 5G branding. So we covered the story a few weeks ago where AT&T has just decided unilaterally to relabel their 4G network as 5G. And so
5GE?
5GE.
That's totally different?
Yeah, that's what they want to say. They rolled out an iOS update with Apple to just change the labeling. And so Sprint is suing and saying, hey, FTC, this is, unfair trade practices. They're calling it something that is confusingly similar to 5G. When it's not 5G, it's going to mislead the consumer.
But I think they did Android too now.
Yeah.
So it's not just iOS anymore. Yeah, and I think they've got a pretty good case.
Yeah. This is hideously evil.
I mean, it's 5G is in the news. If you don't know anything about technology, you get it from the political side. If you don't know anything about politics, you get it from the technology side. So it's hard to miss. And these phone companies definitely want to be riding that wave. So it does seem a little disingenuous for AT&T to 5G.
Look, we rolled out 5G. It's not 5G. That's not what we mean when we say 5G.
That's like selling something that's like beef X, but it's just soy.
Or almond milk. You can't milk an almond.
Well, here in Kentucky, where we live, most of you have worked that out, so I don't feel bad about saying it. We had a glimmer of hope that maybe someday we would get fiber, even with our low population density and terrible, terrible service here. Maybe, because Louisville got fiber, and we call it Louisville, not Louisville. That's
Louisville.
If you're thinking Louisville, you're wrong.
Google Fiber is leaving Louisville in humiliating setback. Gigabit internet service will shut down in Louisville on April 15th. So you don't have to pay for the last 2 months if you're a customer. But Google has basically said the infrastructure there is so broken that they would basically have to re-roll out everything. And speculation is that the reason for that is because they trenched the fiber optic cable in a lot of places because AT&T did not really want to provide access to the utility poles in a timely manner. And they did not trench it deep enough. They only put it a couple of inches below the surface. But after they had problems in Louisville, subsequent cities, they trenched much deeper, like 6 inches to a foot. And things are less problematic with the trench cables in those scenarios.
They also tried to put an epoxy on top of it. And that turned out to be not sunlight resistant.
Yeah.
Oops. So they've already redone it once with asphalt. But now they determined that they would have to just start over, and it doesn't make any sense. So, rip fiber.
Rip Google Fiber.
Oh, they're still going to operate in other places, just not here in the bluegrass.
Makes me sad. I wonder if anybody will try to buy their old fiber network to patch things together.
That would be risky because it's got to be deteriorating, right?
I feel like that if Google would just, or it's like we need all techies in the city to come together. And you guys are going to work real hard this summer, and we're going to roll out fiber everywhere. I feel like that'd probably go pretty well.
You'd never be able to organize them correctly.
Yeah.
Plus, there'd be all the infighting about how to do it. It's like, no, we should do it this way. I know.
Yeah.
You can never.
That makes me sad.
Yeah. Well, Spotify. I briefly thought about maybe I should switch to Spotify because I'm a Google Music customer, but I found out they'll let you block artists. And I need that. I need that feature. But this turned me off immediately.
Spotify bans ad blockers in updated terms of service. So they're cracking down on ad blockers.
They will literally turn you off if they find out you are using an ad blocker. They have anti-ad blocker stuff that's apparently state of the art. You previously would get warning letters, but when this goes through, they might just turn you off.
So you pay for a service and you get ads?
Shocking.
That seems terrible. That's almost like somebody trying to charge you for access to their network, but there's nothing on their network if they're charging everybody to get on their network from the other side. Seems terrible.
Sounds like cable and satellite TV industry as well, and satellite radio.
This is a terrible business model. Just terrible.
Reddit sort of paints itself as a champion of free speech, and yet if you delve into any of the unpopular subreddits, you will see amazing censorship and, mods out of control, and just it's a terrible, terrible platform. But they really don't want you to think that. They want you to think that they're beacons of anti-censorship, which makes this weird.
Reddit has, because they're banned in China, is reportedly set to land a $150 million investment from a Chinese censorship powerhouse. Don't know what's going on with this. There were two stories about this on Reddit, and both of them had the Tiananmen Square tank picture as headlines. They're both gone.
That company is Tencent, which we've talked about before. Tencent is the mega game publisher slash. They do telecommunications, right? They do a bunch of stuff in China there, and it turns out I did not know the depth of this, but Tencent and all the other tech companies actually run the firewall. I mean, they run it at the behest of the government, but they pretty much maintain and control it. So Tencent running the Chinese firewall blocks Reddit 100% from China, but they're also going to invest $150 million into Reddit.
Reddit has a lot of users, but they haven't figured out how to make money with it. It's a little bit of a problem.
Well, Reddit used to be owned by Condé Nast. They're not anymore, right?
I don't know. They might have a little bit of interest in them, but probably not.
Well, that was sort of the beginning of the end, I think, because Condé Nast, a terrible, terrible company. They were, I remember it was hilarious because during the election, people were sort of like putting together collages of Condé Nast and how desperately anti-Trump they were. And the best one was an article, like a just viciously anti-Trump article in Golf magazine. Hey, I want to learn a little bit about golf. What? But if you are fans of their publications, bad news.
Condé Nast will put every single publication behind a paywall by year's end. Everything they own. The headline is GQ, but yeah, that's pretty much the whole story. Is Condé Nast is like, yep, paywalls are the future. That's where we're going.
So they mentioned a few here.
Architectural Digest,
Glamour, Bon Appetit, GQ. There's a lot more than that. They own a lot. Well, Golf Digest, for example, but they own a ton of magazines. New Yorker, Wired, Vanity Fair. Yeah, they own a lot of stuff. And it's all... Now, they're not going to do an across-the-board paywall. Some of them are going to do like the X number of articles per week or month. Some of them are going to do just straight-up paywall. But they're all going to have something to keep you out.
I wonder if that means the journalists will have a job.
Nah, they're just going to copy stories from... You ever see those... Another great thing they do is they'll take those fitness magazines like Men's Health, and they'll do an entire year of covers in one picture, and every 4 to 5 months they just recycle the headlines in a different spot. For like 6 weeks to rock hard abs, at least 5 times a year.
Wow.
At least. And you got to think it's basically the same information. Well, Microsoft is going into the subscription service. As we know, they want the OS itself to be a subscription. Everything goes through the cloud. You pay for it by the month. That's the future. And they feel so strongly about that they're denouncing non-cloud products made by Microsoft.
Yeah. Microsoft, we make Office 2019 and Internet Explorer, but don't use them. So they've got this ad campaign with twins, and one of them uses Office 19 and the other one uses Office 365. And they've got all these contrived tasks that they do, and the cloud integration with Office 365 makes the tasks easier. It's BS. It's total BS.
They're also denouncing Internet Explorer in the wake of their sunsetting support for that. Because, can confirm, a lot of people still use Internet Explorer, which is tragic. I agree with them on that one. But they're pleading, please.
We're building websites in 2019. We need Internet Explorer 11 support. No, you don't. No, you don't.
Now, here's a question for you. What do you think the Venn diagram looks like of people who want to purchase a Raspberry Pi and people who don't shop online? Just a circle, right?
Yeah.
So this one's weird.
Raspberry Pi gets its own brick-and-mortar retail store. So yeah, they had a bunch of pictures from the inside of it, and it's literally just all the different Raspberry Pis and the accessories and like stuff that you can build with a Raspberry Pi, which I guess is kind of cool.
They've got some apparel. And like water bottles, stuff like that. So
it just doesn't seem like that. It seems. I bet the rent in this mall is like $50 a month.
If you really love Raspberry Pi, you might make a pilgrimage. But I don't think you get a price break or anything.
I saw one time a company like Raspberry Pi did this just for an ad campaign. Like they had a lot of cool products, but everybody bought them online. So they literally just rented a store in a mall for like a month so that they could do an ad campaign with like a lot of pictures to show stuff that they're like their cool products or whatever.
It's a little bit Apple Store-ish too.
Yeah.
Although a decided step down from the expense of the Apple Store.
I've often wondered if there would ever be a makerspace like this where it's a little bit retail and a little bit like, there's equipment you can use and people that you can talk to, but like you buy your stuff and then you can like solder it and build stuff in the back.
Yeah, the problem with that is how many times you're going to have to go to people and be like, listen, you're going to have to take a shower.
Yeah.
Yeah. You can't bring your waifu pillow anymore. I'm sorry.
It makes the other guests uncomfortable.
I mean, the fur tail and ears, we were weird about that. We decided not to say anything, but Hatsune has to go back home.
We've had 4 complaints.
If you find yourself in prison, you'll discover that you're not blocked out from the outside world, but it's almost as if prison is a microcosm of if the telecommunication companies get everything they want, which is you can communicate with the outside world through a tiny, tiny little portal, but you have to pay out the ass for it.
Yeah.
So some enterprising ex-convicts have come up with alternatives.
Ex-cons have created Instagram for prisons, and wardens are fine with that. So Pigeonly, is that how you
Pigeonly, I think.
And Inmate Aid. So literally you install like people on the outside install an app on their phone, and they take Instagram-like photos. But what happens when you do that with the app is that it prints out whatever you took a picture of and mails it to whatever inmate that you had set up in the system.
So yeah, you see, with modern photo printing, it's fairly easy to generate stuff like this.
Because it costs too much for them to get emails.
You will get physical mail. Basically, it's like Instagram, but there's a 2-week delay.
Yeah.
And you can do a $7.99 or a $21.99 subscription, and that gets you ever how many images or shipments. But you post just like you would social media if you're on the outside, and then the physical pictures go in. So, and it's totally legal because you're just using U.S. mail. And that's one thing in prison, they can't violate your ability to get mail. They will screen them. You're not allowed to send pictures of nudity or drug paraphernalia.
Neat.
Which I got to think nudity would be one of the most popular, which is unfortunate for the prisoners. Instagram has come under fire because a young lady decided to take her own life, and a lot of people are saying she was motivated to do so by images of similar things happening on Instagram.
Instagram vows to remove all graphic self-harm images from the site. I didn't know this was a problem.
Yeah, this is kind of like, remember when Tumblr had the porn thing? I was like, Tumblr has porn? What? I had no idea. But yeah, apparently Instagram, I remember a lot, like on Instagram we talked about before, eating disorders. Not only were these girls taking pictures of themselves being severely anorexic or whatever, or it's like, oh, hey, just threw up for like half an hour. Look how good I look in this dress, and that they glorified it.
Yeah.
So I guess it's a similar type of thing. This guy claims he's going to fix it. I don't know how you do that. Just an army of Indians like Facebook does it?
It would have to be manual review or flagging.
Yeah. And also, they graphic self-harm. So is there a non-graphic self-harm?
Programming. Like I'm sitting at the computer programming.
Using Apple products. Facebook is once again desperately trying to get ahead of this wave of anti-data collection. It's kind of like, hey, let's police ourselves before the real police come.
Facebook will reveal who uploaded your contact info for ad targeting. So the idea here is when you see an ad on Facebook, you click the link, why am I seeing this ad? And Facebook will tell you exactly who uploaded your contact info. Because on Facebook, not creepy at all, you can target individuals. You can say, I want to advertise to this person's name or email address or phone number. Or I want to advertise to an 18-year-old Inuit widow of 2 or something. And you can do that on Facebook.
Which is a tough audience to crack into, let me tell you. I've been getting a lot of those mailers where it's like, we're having a 2-day event and you're invited and I'm going to teach you how to use social media to skyrocket your sales. Or it's like, get into real estate and flip houses. I've never gotten anything like that before. So I'm positive it was the title company when I bought my house. Because that's clearly the audience they want, right? They don't want losers living in apartments with no income. You got to be able to put like 10, 20 grand into this project and then make any money. And that's just hilarious. And I got one of them and it was like, come and learn in a 2-day thing to master social media. And it's like, okay, wait. You're a master of social media, but you can't fill up a room without using direct mailers? Wait a minute.
Well, if you could use social media, would you go to one of those? I mean.
Yeah, that's exactly. Well, remember when Zuckerberg got in trouble because it turned out he had disappeared, just totally memory hold some of his messages to users because they were embarrassing.
He deleted it on their end.
Right. It turns out that they're still going to let him do that. That's not something they're going to take away from Zuckerberg because, he's in control. But they are going to they're going to throw you a little bone.
Facebook now lets everyone unsend messages for 10 minutes. Now, we should be clear that the event that we're referring to, Zuckerberg unsent after like 10 months, not 10 minutes.
Right. He unsent them when things got a little hairy. And it's like, oh, better go clean up the history of that.
Yeah. So, now for 10 minutes. This will be abused. We used to have this on the forum. It was abused.
But is it hold it for 10 minutes or can the other person see it during that time?
The other person can see it during that time.
That doesn't make any sense at all.
How we had it. So, the other person is not guaranteed to have seen it because it might be unread. So
but I'm saying, like, if they can see it at all during those 10 minutes, what's the point of taking it back?
Well, yeah. Yeah. Because they will have seen it.
That would be great if
you control with it.
If there's no record of that, it's like, I'm going to kill you. Delete. That can't be how that works.
Well, it can't delay for 10 minutes. Otherwise, it's going to make real-time conversation with somebody annoying.
But that's the messenger?
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes no sense, does it? So I guess it would have to be unread.
Yeah.
You probably lose the ability once it's read.
Yeah, I guess. Maybe.
See.
We should do experiments. Engagement challenge.
Then we'd have to use Facebook. You ever see those screenshots where it's like, hello, milady. How would you, and then it goes unread for like 5 minutes and it's like, I fucking hate you anyway. You fat bitch.
That's exactly what I was thinking.
Those guys are really going to be into that.
That's what they were doing on the forum. They were like getting everybody riled up by posting terrible things. It's like, guys, why are you wasting my time with this?
They're going to have scripts that just fire those out everywhere.
Yeah.
And then delete them if they're not been read. And then they'll just do it again the next day.
Yeah.
Terrible. Terrible. Wells Fargo, we talked about last week, had a little bit of an ATM problem. The problem being nothing worked. It turns out that the problems did not stop there, and they continue.
Wells Fargo's outage. Customers say direct deposits are not showing up. So this turns out that there was a smoke event in a data center, and it crippled Wells Fargo.
Not the kind of smoke event that Krista would be involved in. This was, some sort of failure of equipment.
Nothing caught on fire. It was just that the data center was so sensitive to foreign contaminants in the air, smoke, maybe a vape event. We don't really know.
Oh, so it could have been a Krista type smoke event, though.
Maybe.
We have a special room for her that vents outside here.
We don't know.
But yeah, they're saying that they still don't have it fixed up, and they're silent on the topic, or they were as of this article, which came out on the 8th. People were like, hey, I got paid this week, and yet it's not there, and I need this money to live. They weren't saying anything.
Wells Fargo's outage. How far will it go? Because Wells Fargo will go far.
Yeah, I got it.
I ain't laughing, but I got it.
We'll be back Friday. Friday will be security, robots, and everybody's favorite nonsense.
See you then. Good news. You've survived Valentine's Day. It's the 15th.
Also known as Cheap Candy Day.
Yes, go get your cheap candy.
So you can forget that awkward Valentine's date that led nowhere and fuel your diabetes in one swift stroke.
Diabetes.
For low costs.
Oh, Lord.
And unfortunately, we're going to talk about security. So you're going to feel even worse about your life.
Because you're insecure?
But we'll end up with nonsense. Maybe you can feel a little bit better laughing at other people's misfortunes. But first, let's talk about screen recording. Now, you might be thinking to yourself, haha, screen recording. That's what happens to people that download those weird Chinese apps, right? Those beauty filter apps. I don't do that. I'm too smart. Well, there's some bad news.
Apple has told developers to disclose or remove screen recording code. So it turns out that this analytics company that we reported on last week and the week before and a couple of weeks before that, that analytics software is used in a lot of really popular App Store applications as well.
It's not who you think either. Expedia, Hollister, Hotels.com. Those are some apps that a lot of people might use. You think they're secure?
No.
Nope.
They're actually recording the screen even when that app is not active, which is bad news.
And against terms of service.
Yeah.
So Apple has said, stop doing that or we're going to take you off. I bet once we find out everybody that was like, okay, we complied with this, the list will be a lot bigger.
Yeah.
This is for, data tracking, ad targeting type of stuff. It probably can be used a little bit to improve your experience, but for the most part, I'd say they're just selling that data.
They are definitely selling that data.
Well, we talked about the FaceTime bug, where if you just change the volume, or what else could you do?
You could call somebody and they would not answer, but you would hear the mic and maybe see video.
But you had to change the volume or do something else. But anyway, that was really easy to spy on people as long as they didn't answer the phone. Well, they fixed it.
Apple has released an iPhone update to fix the Group FaceTime eavesdropping bug. iOS 12.1.4 is now available. Now, I read some reports that said that Apple had fixed this by deploying an update, whether or not you wanted to. Like, they just installed it. But I need some more information on that because
that doesn't surprise me at all.
Yeah,
if that was the case. There was also some question about were they going to pay the bug bounty because some kid found it,
and Apple said they will,
but they weren't going to at first.
Yeah,
and it pointed out something that a lot of people complain about, which is Apple's bug bounty program. First of all, only applies to iOS, doesn't apply to a lot of their other products, and they'll kind of red tape you a lot. They'll turn you down. They'll make you wait months and months and months to get your payout. A lot of people don't like it, especially this guy.
This researcher reveals a huge Mac password flaw to protest the Apple bug bounty. So he hasn't released details of this, but he has released an application that will dump your Apple keychain, which is the thing that has all your passwords, and with no special privileges or any kind of anything like that, because again, macOS is second fiddle to iOS, and Apple just does not care about macOS anymore.
And more importantly, he didn't tell Apple anything about this. They found out about it when everybody else did. Embarrassing.
Well, if there's no bug bounty, what do you expect?
How quick? So they got on that iOS update in under a week.
Yeah. How
long do you think it'll take for macOS?
I don't think Apple even cares. Like, honestly, there's so much they could be doing to make macOS better. And I always hate when Apple is in this weird indeterminate middle thing, because it's like they obviously don't care about the product. They should open source it if they don't care about it, but they won't open source it because they feel like really hostile. They seem to feel really hostile toward open source if you look at some of their past actions.
Yeah, but while they might not sell a ton of Macs, think about the profit margin on those Macs.
Yeah, but I mean, the profit margin would seem to demand that they put some maintenance into the damn operating system.
No, because you're not buying it.
For the operating system?
Yeah, you're not buying it for the operating system.
It's good enough.
You're not buying it for the hardware. Because if you cared about either of those things, you wouldn't touch it. You're buying it for the brand.
Yeah.
And you're not going to buy anything else. Because why would you? You're completely spellbound. Huawei, we can't stop talking about Huawei. They're everywhere. And in the EU, although, it seems like the EU is skeptical of Trump's claims about Huawei. We can say that, right?
Yeah, I think that's probably accurate.
But they have actually went to Huawei and they said, hey, we have some concerns about your security. And Huawei now has a response.
Huawei's security issues will take 5 years to fix, the firm tells the Commons. So, there was an incident, I think, that led to an audit, and this is what came out of this audit. It's like, hey, you're going to need to change your products and make them more secure in this way, and this way, and this way. And they said 3 to 5 years to make those changes.
Well, they said to make any progress. Yeah. I don't think they're even planning to complete it in 5 years. You won't even see a difference for 5 years, I think is what they're saying.
I also thought the response was kind of hand-wavy because they were like, look, a telecommunications network is hugely complicated, and it's not like we can just roll out a fix tomorrow. They're architecturally insecure. And that is not untrue, but I think that belies the root problem, which is they need to do more.
But compared to the other companies, do you think it's materially worse? Or is this just because it's in China?
No, I think that, if we look at some of the security issues that have happened here, look at Juniper and Cisco have had some face palm worthy security issues.
Well,
Cisco's hard-coded backdoors?
Every week.
5 times.
Yeah. Every week Cisco had a major security flaw. So.
Now, is that... so I guess what we're saying is that's incompetence and not...
maliciousness.
Yeah.
But I don't think we can ever discount, no matter how much hyperbole we get from the governments, the Chinese government could very well be pulling the strings with Huawei. That's a total possibility. Don't trust anyone, basically.
But it's also a total possibility the NSA is pulling the strings with Cisco or
could be
Juniper.
Perhaps more likely than not.
Or RSA. They're pulling the strings with RSA.
We talked in the last episode about that children's watch had an API that didn't require authentication of any kind. If you knew the ID of your child's watch, anybody could hit that API and do a variety of things.
If you didn't know the API, the key, you could just look at all the children.
Yeah, well, sure. Just guess. Just, if you knew the length of the string, just iterate till you find some. Now, that's a terrible system. But with children's watches, a lot of people will be like, oh, they're our most precious commodity. No, they're not. They're super easy to make. We're not going to run out of them. But one place where this could be a serious, serious problem is with the airlines. Now, the good news is the airlines would never use an API like that, right?
Oh, no. It turns out the airline e-ticketing systems have put passenger data at risk. So, yeah, the e-ticketing system's not secured, and anybody can scrape the data.
They send you an email link. That link has your ID. There's no authentication. You can view your passenger, your flight data, and in some cases make changes.
Your ID is number 7. What if I put number 8? Oh, welcome, Mr. Smith. Number 9, welcome, Mrs. Smith. Number 10.
So they talk about how you could, in some cases, I think it would be difficult with all the face recognition and your passport getting through and everything.
But if somebody's got that primo seat, you could be like, no, I'm canceling.
Could do that. Yeah. What if it's full and you really want to get on that flight?
Yeah.
So that's embarrassing.
What a time to be alive.
Or plummeting to your death through the air. It's because the terrorists got on board. Gmail. Gmail has a really cool feature, and you might not know about it. But if you put a dot in your Gmail address, Gmail ignores the dot. Doesn't care. So if you're signing up for something annoying, then you can put that dot in there, and if they shared your email.
Yeah.
You can place the blame.
It also ignores everything after a plus symbol.
Really, really, really cool feature. But turns out there's some problems with it.
Scammer groups are exploiting Gmail accounts dot feature for online fraud. So for certain services where you have to provide an email, like a legit email to sign up, well, you can just enter 50 permutations of your email and they'll get 50 activation links. And it's easy and convenient for the scammers to manage out of one account.
And I imagine... just before we started recording, we were talking about the perils of having older parents in the technology world. And I am sure if my parents got a link that was from, Apple, for example, and it was like, hey, we need you to click this verification link, they wouldn't question it at all. It's like, oh, okay.
I like Apple. I'm going to click.
It's like, this came to my email address. This is legitimately from apple.com. Can't argue with that. Let's go ahead and click that button. And that's what the scammers count on. They also, slightly different variation for this is googlemail.com and gmail.com work interchangeably.
Well, that was because Germany.
But still works.
Gmail can't be Gmail in Germany. It's got to be Google Mail.
Oh, because they already had a Gmail. That makes sense. Yeah. Anyway, you can use that as well. And sign up for things, get it to the same address, even though it's a unique login. Also, I think that's probably one of the reasons that the whole free trial without a credit card has gone extinct. Too easy. Too easy to beat that.
Oh, Lord.
What if you figured out that there was a tiny, tiny window during the day when ATM withdrawals didn't actually affect your account, what would you do?
I think it's going to be Superman 2. It's like software executive exploits ATM loophole to steal $1 million. The software chief tried to explain away his actions as an internal security test.
So he did exactly that. He was testing the security, figured out the minute before midnight, ATM transactions weren't recorded. How did they not figure that out before?
Well, you know, it's a bank. It's fine.
So he set up a fake account to pull them from. But he realized that it would never get caught because the fake account would never devalue at all. And he pulled out $1 million. Now, he was smart. I think he kind of was like, this is too good to be true. Let me play this safe. He didn't spend $1 of that money. Kept it all. And when they caught him, he was like, oh, I was just holding on to that. I was just seeing if you'd catch me. This was a security test. He gave it all back. The bank was happy. They were like, oh, wow, good catch. See you next Monday. The Chinese police, on the other hand, they didn't buy it. So he's doing 10 years.
Oops.
And the bank actually went to bat for him in the court case, which is maybe one of the reasons they have such bad security is they're so gullible.
Who would do that? Like, I'm going to have this open API. It's just all the children. Like, who would exploit that? It's like, I'm going to open this up. It's like, oh, it's a list of children in the area. I'm just going to close that because that's not something that I should see.
Well, you got to say something. You got to report it.
See something, say something.
Cover your tracks. A lot of people there. So there is this ongoing debate. Are our phones listening to us?
Yes.
At all times?
Unquestionably.
Well, some people say you're crazy for thinking that.
They're also recording the screen taps and stuff like that.
Again, that is a conspiracy theory.
Completely unsubstantiated.
It's a conspiracy theory, and that must be removed from Facebook. But what if we went
news.
just like pure tinfoil and it was crazy and was like, dude, there are microphones and devices that they don't even tell you about. How insane is that?
Nest Secure has an unlisted disabled microphone. Update, Google has confirmed.
So the Nest generally uses the Google HomePod to communicate with it. It doesn't have a microphone. You use the HomePod's microphone to communicate with the Nest. But it turns out they do have microphones. They've always had them.
They're just not enabled yet.
But they also aren't listed in the parts list. That's weird.
That does seem a little weird, yeah.
In a future update, they're going to turn them all on and you're going to be able to use them.
But not yet.
But they're definitely not listening all the time.
Definitely. Definitely not.
You'd have to be crazy to suspect something like that. Speaking of cameras on everybody's doorstep, which is becoming a very popular thing, Amazon has an interesting system set up for those.
Amazon's home security company is turning everyone into cops. Neighbors, a social media crime reporting app owned by Amazon, creates a digital ecosystem in which you are encouraged to assume the worst about your neighbors. So this story is about a neighborhood where packages are stolen, but it paints a picture where, let's say like the Ring doorbell cameras and the Nest cameras and Amazon's home security cameras. Let's say that everybody in your neighborhood has these. What if everybody got together and connected all of their security devices to one thing in the cloud? So if something is stolen off of your porch, your neighbors have a good view of that from the other side, from across the road. Maybe your neighbor down the road at the corner catches the car as it turns left onto the main highway. Wouldn't it be convenient if neighborhoods had access to all this data everybody's collecting individually?
And that's basically what they built. It's called Neighbors. It's basically a Facebook for Ring doorbell owners. Something weird happens, you post a screenshot, you post a timestamp. Hey, anybody else see this? Now, because this is a Vice article, it immediately devolves into race and gender.
Yeah.
And 90% of this is just garbage. But they do bring up a disturbing thing of what kind of world are we living in where, and you can sort of see this. Like, I hate to make the comparison, but the Nazis. Neighbors, ratting out neighbors.
Yeah.
That was a big part of it. And it was almost like you got brownie points.
There's a twist on it here, though. It's not necessarily neighbors ratting out neighbors. It's like neighbors banding together against like one neighbor that may be a little operating a little bit below the law.
But also, I think there's an element of It's kind of like Facebook, right?
Yeah.
It's not quite a like button, but I need to post something today.
Yeah.
Did anything weird happen?
Yeah.
Oh, please let something weird happen because I want to make a post today.
Well, okay, so it's like this is about stealing packages. It's like somebody stole a package. It's like how cool. I mean, I think that would be cool if I've ordered something off Amazon and the package gets stolen, and it's like, you mean I can just click a few buttons? And because it talks about API access, and it's like in the future maybe we can just have access to this, and you can just, it's like the package was stolen. I can just look through your devices for your outside cameras and see, who stole my package, and we can find that person. We can hunt them down. They may not even be from our neighborhood. Let's hunt them down. But how long until like the neighborhood association is like, you didn't bring your trash can in soon enough, or you're cutting your lawn an hour too late or an hour too early or something like that.
Think about this: homeowners association demands your API.
Yeah. It's like, oh, you agreed to that. And it's like, I don't know if I'm comfortable with you because you guys are like little Napoleons.
Then we're going to foreclose.
Yeah.
Or, hey, I caught Bob coming home the other day. He was wearing a MAGA hat. Let's burn his house.
Oh, so-and-so's having an extramarital affair. Post it on the internet.
Jeff Bezos.
Yeah. And also, law enforcement will have access to all this as well. Like, it's just one court order away from...
Right.
And then now it's explain yourself.
It's a terrible, terrible thing. But how are you going to stop it? Because you can't stop somebody from filming on their own property.
Right.
So this is coming. This is going to be a world we live in.
Yep.
Maybe we got to get some of those Russian anti-devices.
You're going to literally have to participate in order to have more evidence of your innocence than circumstantial evidence of your guilt.
That's not how the burden of proof works.
It is now, damn it.
Well, you're going to have a camera. You have to get it. It's an arms race, right?
Yeah.
And while you're at it, why don't you just go ahead and get an Internet of Things refrigerator?
Thousands of industrial refrigerators can be remotely defrosted thanks to default passwords. They got a little table down here, and it's like, cheese fridge 1 is defrosting. And it's like, no, the cheese, no.
Well, more importantly, these are industrial units. Yeah. So
it's got a lot of cheese.
You won't actually have this in your home. But you know who might have it? Hospitals. Blood Bank 1 is defrosting. And because these are giant industrial units, even if you don't have anything important in there, the amount of frost is going to turn into water.
Yeah.
And that has to go somewhere. And you would plan for that if you plan to defrost. But if it was Saturday night and nobody was working and you start the defrost, that's going to be a problem come Monday.
It's going to be bad news for the opener on Monday.
So that is just a default password problem. Now, the company says, we're not to blame. Read the manual. It says change the password. But the Shodan database shows a lot of these refrigerators running on the default password.
Yeah.
And they do have names that describe exactly what's in them, which that's, and now that it's in the news, all those 4chan hackers are they're having a great weekend.
Defrosting fiends.
They got nothing to do on Valentine's Day. To defrost refrigerators. All those nice restaurants, they'll time it so that
the cheese has gone bad.
All the Valentine's dates will have to be canceled because the refrigerator died during the night.
Sorry, sir. There's no brie for your salad.
It's just going to smell like dead meat, rotten meat in those restaurants.
Oh.
I don't know about you, but when I call up a company and I get the automated voice line, I immediately get angry. And apparently a lot of people do that because they're working on it.
Effectiva's AI, here's your anger in 1.2 seconds. The picture that I have in my mind is from the movie Elysium, where like the guy is interacting with like the robot, and it's like, you're becoming agitated, sir. Blah, and it's just like very calm, but also kind of condescending, even though it's technology. And this is where we're headed with the AI. It's like you're going to be really angry, and it's like, I can tell that you're angry, sir. Please be calm. It's like,
She's desperately trying to tell you bad jokes or something. But yeah, this AI, they fed it video, I think, and it started to learn the correlation using video, but then they took the video away from it so that just with the voice, it could start. And so 1.2 seconds, it could figure out if you're angry at it or not. Probably a wealth of people being angry at those kinds of systems.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know about video.
Definitely.
We live in a world where a lot of people do video communications. That's one of the things, I feel like it took a lot longer to catch on than you would expect.
Well, it's because it's too clunky. You got to be able to like call somebody with video as easy as a phone call.
Yeah, we still don't have that. But I think the younger generation, with the
getting
FaceTiming and all that stuff, they're getting there. But it can be embarrassing. What if your room is messy, or there's some people back there that don't want to be part of the call, or there's a dead hooker? There could be a lot of things that could be a problem with the background of your call, and Microsoft has an answer.
Microsoft is bringing AI-powered background blurring to Skype. So yeah, it's like your webcam is real crappy. Its depth of field is infinite, and this will hopefully fix that in software.
You think we're ever going to see a video where it's just like some young girl is FaceTiming and she's like, "Oh, you're having a good time," and then there's like just a mass sort of growing behind her, and then it murders her.
Just like a black blur.
It's the blur that just becomes a knife. That'd be a cool shot in the movie.
Yeah.
I want royalties if you use that.
People notice this too. Like, so I do a lot of video conferencing, and one of the setups has like one of the nice cameras on it. And so it's got a nice depth of field, and it's focused on me, and the background is blurred. And everybody, whenever I have to do those video conference calls, everybody is like, "Wow, what kind of a setup do you have? This looks amazing." And it's just like, eh.
Although I think a lot of people who do that kind of thing carefully sculpt the background.
Yeah. Oh, I've definitely done that.
And I'm like, I want to show off my background.
I've got my Nixie tube clock and my wall of monitors. It's great. It's totally great.
Moving on to that was an AI article because they're using AI to do that. We didn't mention that part. But another thing that AI is doing is it's fighting that last mile of spam, that hardest ground to cover.
Gmail is now blocking 100 million extra spam messages every day with AI. I feel like the false positives are really ramping up, though.
Yeah, and this is probably, even though it's a small amount of actual spam blocks, probably a huge amount of false positives.
Yeah.
But they're using their TensorFlow thing, and they've adapted it to try it. So it looks at those messages that pass the spam filter, but based on your interaction with Gmail and the sender's interaction with Gmail, they try to find patterns to go ahead and block it. I think Gmail does a pretty good job, though, with spam. It gets most of them.
It does a pretty good job. I would agree with that.
StarCraft, AI's mastered it. A lot of, we did the StarCraft story, and there were a couple of comments like, "These people are washed up has-beens at StarCraft." But they could beat
super impressive
80% of the population.
Yeah.
So really, are they that bad?
No.
Just because they're not at the top of the ladder.
Come on.
But if some people were discounting, it's like, oh, the AI is kind of shitty. Go, chess. What's that other game that's really good at? Anyway, these AIs are just dominating games. But this game is a little bit different.
AI is playing Pictionary to figure out how the world works.
This is a cool little video over here. So it actually translates all of your little drawings into these icons. And you take turns, you try to guess, and then the AI tries to guess. And you can actually play this game right now. What was the link?
It's in there somewhere.
I don't know. Yeah, you can click on the one tab, but you can go. You can play Pictionary all day long with an AI if you want to. If you don't have any, all this is after Valentine's Day.
Yeah.
I was going to say this could be an alternate plan for Valentine's Day.
No, that's
fine. What was the name of the AI that gets you your parking ticket defeated?
That's mentioned in the article.
I can't remember the name of it, though.
I can't remember either.
But anyway, there's an AI that will fight parking tickets, and it's amazingly good at it.
160,000 tickets saved. There's real people that are looking at it. It's just the AI helps them.
And they can just run through like super fast. Well, they've expanded its arsenal.
Air helps new bots collect airline compensation for packages. So if you've booked a flight and they've lost your luggage, or your luggage was delayed, or your flight was delayed, or whatever, you may be entitled to compensation. This bot will help you get it.
Airlines hate it.
They talk about how it's like, this is not actually the bots are taking jobs, but the company that's behind this is like, look, we would not be able to afford to do this if it weren't for AI and bots to help with this, because we have real people. There's actually two bots, like Agent Helper and like Docky, and those two agents do different things with like the interface for the airlines. but they're really tools to help human beings automate their workflow to collect compensation on behalf of passengers. And that's how they make their money. But if it was a manual process, there's not enough margin here for it to be done by human beings.
And if you had to do it yourself, you probably wouldn't get enough back to account for the hours that you spent dealing with it.
Yeah.
It's kind of like that story about the Pacer system. It's a system where they give you an avenue to resolve these things, but they make it so that you won't do it.
Yeah.
They try to make it impossible. And the AI is able to cut through all that.
The airline screwed up. You can get $15 back, but only after you've spent 4 hours dealing with nonsense.
Right, yeah.
And it's like, well, that's even less than minimum wage, so why even bother?
Now, just let the robot do it. I wonder how hard they're lobbying to make that illegal.
Oh, pretty hard, I'd say.
This story's weird. I don't know if CNN Business got something wrong here, but this video...
I didn't understand the video at all.
So the video is about cats interacting with these little robots. But the headline is about spices.
The world's biggest spice company is using AI to find new flavors. It's Old Bay. Old Bay is looking for new flavors for people using AI.
McCormick owns Old Bay.
Yeah, but okay. That's fine.
Remember New Bay? That story about New Bay? BAE?
Oh, yeah.
They had a new spice that they sued them. So, yeah, kind of like those AIs that will search for new materials just by studying how the base parts interact.
We need the new allspice.
That's pretty much what they're doing. They're like, hey, these spices and these foods tend to go together and we like these results. Just try to come up with something new. And then they take it in the kitchen, they try it out and see what they got. They do talk about it get a little weird at first because you have to give it really specific rules because they're like, hey, we want to season some rice. We want like a good rice seasoning. And they ran it through the AI, and what came out the other end chose to remove the rice. But they said it turned out to be like a really good all-purpose spice that came out the other end.
Well, I saw there was this Iron Chef show once where the guy took like 1 million lobsters and used that to like infuse the flavor of something else. And
celery.
And then he threw away the lobsters.
He like put the celery in the lobsters, cooked it, took the celery out, threw the lobsters away. You got to think like, and when they took that and syndicated it to like the starving countries, people are looking at it like, what? You threw away the lobsters? Another thing that AI has been known to do is to predict things like crime. We had Palantir. We have the Amazon.
That's still around.
The Amazon image recognition, face recognition thing that they're using in law enforcement.
That is in more places than it really should be.
Google attempted to do it with the drones, which is kind of like a crime.
Made some employees upset.
Terror prediction.
Secretly.
It's kind of the same thing. And it turns out the UK is doubling down.
The crime prediction software has been adopted by 14 UK police forces. So we're putting a little anchor, a little placeholder here so that we can call back to this moment right now in the future and say, this did not go well.
Yeah. Apart from the Orwellian aspect here, which should be obvious, hopefully. If it's not, you should go read that book. 1984, I'm referencing there, because it should be super obvious. But aside from that, one thing about these prediction softwares is that they can tend to be biased.
Yeah.
Because the data they're not inherently biased, but the data will lead them to conclusions just because it's incomplete.
You are a poor person. Also, you are a black person. You need to be preemptively incarcerated.
The other thing about this that I think BBC really kind of just papered over is that they are assigning a score, much like the Chinese social score.
But you can't see why it has that score.
Yeah, right. But you have a score which presumably you can never escape.
Yeah.
And so the AI, if it thinks you're going to commit a crime today, it isn't going to change its mind tomorrow.
If the AI has assigned you a low score because you are poor, that is different than the AI assigning you a low score because you were in violation of your parole for carrying a firearm.
Yeah. And the hilarious thing is, of course, they point out they're using it because of the rash of knife crimes. Every time I think about the phrase knife crimes, I have to laugh a little bit. If your family was a victim of knife crime, I'm sorry. I don't mean to. Well, I do mean to belittle it a little bit because we all have knives.
There's literally one on the desk.
I have one in my pocket. Artificial intelligence has taught us all these things. It's given us scores. It's made our spices. It's given us new materials. And now it's unlocked a dark part of our history.
We have a hidden member of our family tree. Is this like Cousin Eddie, who's a different race, and like no one talks about Cousin Eddie?
Well, it'd have to be a different species.
Well, see, the species, though, I mean, we have an ancestor that is present in our DNA that is heretofore undiscovered. Although they talk about one of the discoveries, there was a teenage girl found in a cave that was like super old, that may be one of this missing species. So it's like Neanderthal and Denisovian had interbred, and so there should have been a very large population to support this much genetic material in modern humans.
The thing I love about all that, evolutionary human past stuff is that you get the idea that they clearly knew that this other group was a little bit different, but they didn't even stop a millisecond to think, we shouldn't bang that. It's just like,
It makes you wonder how modern racism came to be.
It appears that our genitals are compatible. Let's test that theory. Yeah, that's true. Well, racism tends to break down when it comes to breeding.
Mm.
I mean, that's one of the things about, growing up in the sticks like we did is we had 2 black guys at our high school. 2. And they never wanted for female attention because as soon as those girls hit that like rebellious stage, the more racist daddy was, the more they ran into these guys' arms. So, they suffered a lot of racism in that school. I don't doubt that a bit, but they got some positives from it as well. Bees.
Speaking of positives and negatives,
we're killing all of our bees
We
still, as far as I know.
we are.
And it's bad because our bees do a lot for us that you might not even know about. And I'm going to admit that I probably don't even know the extent of the bees, certainly not their ability to perform mathematics.
Bees can solve math problems with addition and subtraction. So the scientists set up a really clever experiment using colors and shapes, and they conditioned the bees so that if they did the math problem correctly, they would get a reward. Otherwise, they got a quinine, I think, as a punishment. And so they figured in order to get the reward, the bees would have to reason correctly about addition or subtraction. And so then they ran the bees through a couple of tests to see if they would do the math correctly without the reward being present, and they did.
Although they only got 65%. So I don't think that means that bees can't do math. I think it means that only some really gifted bees can do math. Most of the bees are morons.
But the bees only have like 1 million neurons, which is a shockingly low number to be able to understand abstract concepts. Because was it Carl Sagan says, the number 0 has an elaborate logical underpinning.
That was the other thing. They could understand nothing. And apparently most animals can't do that. You don't have a concept of the absence of a thing, which is interesting. I guess that explains why, when you feed your animals, they can't really grasp the fact that there's no food left in the bowl.
Feed me more. I must eat more. It's like, what? No.
This story, I find it not surprising, but I also don't think, the question here is, this kind of goes back to the paperclip days. Were those rockets any less useful because they killed thousands of people in London?
Call for retraction of 400 scientific papers amid fears that organs came from Chinese prisoners. So this story starts with livers. And so there were Chinese hospitals that had way more viable livers than they had deaths of a certain type.
It was 10,000 deaths. And you don't get all 10,000 of those livers.
It's like 1 in 3.
To explain 100,000 liver transplants.
We cut the livers into small pieces and grew them artificially. And
oh, you can't do that, can you?
Yeah.
So how do you explain that? The prison system.
Yeah. So
they killed the prisoners and harvested their organs.
Turns out.
Which, in RimWorld, you can't do that. Or you can do it, but the colonists hate it, which shows you that Chinese citizens are much less sensitive than the people of RimWorld. But the question is, so they did studies based on these 100,000 liver transplants, and we presumably learned something about liver transplants. That's a lot. It's a lot of data. Do we throw that data out because some Chinese prisoners died to bring it to us? I mean, it's not like we can put those livers back. I guess, do you think just ignoring the data would discourage them from doing it in the future? I don't think it would.
I don't think that it would discourage them. Although that's the idea, is that if the research is ignored, if the scientists are shunned, that we won't have this in the future.
It's a difficult call.
I was looking forward to Krista's reaction to our next story.
I think she would be horrified. I was going to suggest this should be the honeymoon.
Yes, horrification confirmed. You can now finally spend a night in a hotel shaped like a bumhole. Yeah, it's literally like a section of intestine and a sphincter.
Well, it's the colon. Here's the hole. There it is. You do not actually enter and exit through that.
That just ruins it for me.
Yeah. They've got some other pictures down here that show. Yeah, so here's the entrance. Just the door.
I like the veins.
Yeah, it's very, and also the inside. They got some pictures. So these walls are also patterned like the inside of the colon.
Nice.
I don't know if the inside of your colon is white. I doubt it. But yeah, you got a tub that's sort of like, also colon wall shaped. You got this little artsy table.
And then there's a bed behind that.
And it's pretty reasonable. I think it's like less than $200 a night. $136. Now, it is in the middle of nowhere.
That's a problem.
So you're basically, there's a museum there.
And there's just the one.
Two, I think.
Oh, is it? I thought the other one was some other theme other than...
No, but see, I think this is a room and this is a room.
Oh.
So you can either get the ass end or the intestine end. You think you can... It's like, oh, I'm sorry, sir, the ass end is booked that weekend. Can I offer you the intestine end? Well, there's a museum and you get breakfast and a day pass to the museum with that $137.
Well, we've got to do a level 1 vacation video.
All right, well, I'm taking the ass end. I have seen a lot of cheap projectors on sale.
Ubiquitous technology, like ubiquitous projector technology, is becoming a thing.
Yeah, and you can really get a bargain on them. Projectors used to be a huge expense. And the more they come out, I think the more we're going to see stuff like this.
Adult film has been screened on Garage for the entire neighborhood, and it has led to an arrest. A Newport News neighborhood's innocence was compromised Wednesday evening when an adult film was projected for an entire neighborhood to watch. Now, I've seen stuff like this happen before. Usually the audio delivery is not too much of an issue, but the article makes it sound like the audio was sort of a problem too. And there were kids that were like, what's going on with that?
Oh, I didn't even think about the audio. Well, probably like a Bluetooth speaker or something.
It would have had it can't have been much, but one of the neighbors complained that they could hear it.
So yeah, I don't know what this guy's motivation was. They said he was crazy.
Yeah, they said that he set a bonfire in his driveway as well.
Yeah, so I don't know what would motivate someone to do that, but it would be hard to stop if more people wanted to copy that.
You don't even necessarily have a good idea of where it's coming from, depending on how the image is distorted. Like, you could project onto your neighbor's house, and they might not see where it's coming from.
Well, he did. I think he projected onto a nearby building, so he didn't have like a screen or anything set up.
This is amazing. This? I got to take this thing for a test drive. I know just the content.
Well, here's the thing. He might have even gotten away with it, but for some reason he left the projector on the porch overnight. So when the cops got there, the smoking projector was still there, which couldn't have been good for it.
I didn't even think that was a crime, officer. I mean...
We have, in this country at least, and I think probably worldwide, a constant debate that has been debunked probably 100 times at this point, which is that violent movies and video games cause people to become more violent. And it keeps popping up, and it has popped up again.
This is actually a follow-up because this is in Pennsylvania, and the tax on violent video games to pay for school safety, that's one lawmaker's suggestion. This is the same guy that we reported on a couple of weeks ago, where they were trying to do taxes on technological stuff for, it's like there's a relation here. There's not a relation. There's not a relation.
So this guy wants 10% of all mature and what's the other rating? There's another rating for violent video games. He wants every game sold like that. You could have a mature rating without violence.
Yeah.
What about all those?
What about Doki Doki Literature Club?
Yeah, those anime hentai games.
Well,
although
not that.
Doki had some violence in it. Probably not the kind they're talking about. But that 10% is taken and it goes toward some kind of school protection fund. I don't even know what they would do with that money.
Why don't we tax the internet and use that to pay for analog telephones?
You're saying there's as much as a correlation?
Yeah.
But some people do. I think it's something easy to blame.
Yeah.
You're always looking for something easy. It's like, oh, we're not broken as a society. Our children are not out of their minds because we don't parent them. No. It's Call of Duty. Clearly. So. Well, Valentine's Day, people tend to desperately try to find a mate for Valentine's Day. It's like that one time of the year where you want to prove that you can actually do that. And so now that Valentine's Day is over, you might find yourself ghosted by your date.
Yeah.
She's used you for a free meal. She got her social media postings, she got to wear that nice dress.
It's like a praying mantis.
And yes, I'm gendering because it's most likely to be in that direction. So you're angry and you want to lash out. How do you do it?
The zoo is holding a contest for you to name a snake after your ex. So is your ex a snake? Well, have this zoo's snake named after your ex.
It's a brown snake, one of the most venomous in Australia, which of course, the most venomous country in the world. So you can imagine that's a pretty potent snake. If you win the contest, you will also get a lifetime pass to come and visit it.
Snakey McSnakeface.
I doubt that anyone has an ex-girlfriend named Snakey McSnakeface, but maybe. Wouldn't that be a coincidence if that happened and they won this contest? That's got to be lottery level of statistics. Now, Wendell, one thing I know about you, you are constantly eating while looking at your phone.
Yes.
So I imagine that you run into the problem of having greasy and or otherwise fouled fingers.
My phone is disgusting.
So this product might appeal to you.
Drinkable potato chips. The product's keeping your phone grease-free. The video actually talks about other products. My favorite product for keeping your phone grease-free that has been tried in the past was the Fryless from McDonald's.
Well, let's go back to the oh no, you're talking about I liked the other fry thing, the fry holder thing, which didn't talk about how you got the fries into it in the first place.
Where it was like
but I think drinkable is false advertising here.
Yeah, it's more like powdered crackers in a bag.
It's like the bottom of the Pringles can.
Yeah, you just turn it up.
If you try to drink that, you're going to inhale it, and you're going to have a bad time.
Have you ever done that with crackers? I've done that with crackers accidentally. I got a spoonful of chili that had like the crumbled crackers on top, but it was mostly crackers, and I didn't realize. And something happened, and I took a breath, but it wasn't like a sharp breath, and I just inhaled those crackers. Yeah. It was bad.
That's why you can't do the cinnamon challenge, because you will inevitably get some of it into your breathing canals, and then
it's all over.
It starts a process. So here they are. I guess this is a Japanese product, but it is basically just a crushed bag of chips.
Yeah.
I mean, converting a regular bag of chips to this is maybe one of the easiest things in the universe.
Listen, the Fryless is infinitely more useful.
Well, let's take a look at some alternatives. So this was a little gripper arm to pick up potato chips with just your thumb as the actuator. That's not too terrible, but I think the problem with this thing is when you get down to the powder part of the chips,
it's not going to work.
It's useless. I guess you could just drink those then at that point.
Well,
then here we have the fork. Now, the fork only works if you preload it. It makes no sense at all. Who thought this was a good idea? Obviously a marketing campaign. But, as you said, the Fryless.
Did that really come with a McDonald's thing? Or did
for a while, it did, yeah.
Wow.
And, basically it's just like the little pins you can buy to to swipe on your smartphone.
Well, this separates the men marketing companies from the boy marketing companies right here, because the marketing company that came up with the Fryless, they've got the goods. The other companies, just they're posers.
I think the marketing company that came up with the Fryless had at least one engineer working on it. And he was like, why don't we just do a stylus? And then somebody was like, you mean a Fryless?
And that's why you watch the Level 1 news. And or maybe a patron.
Oh, we're losing those patrons. Discord. Now, Discord has in the past been accused of doing a little bit of data scraping from its users.
Yeah.
It has become unpopular for a variety of other reasons. And always there's been arguments about overzealous moderators. But we had no idea.
Discord comes under fire for alleged moderator abuse and furry corruption. Furry corruption. You know, I don't care what kind of business you're in. Whether you make toothpicks or you launch rockets. Furry corruption is something you always have to be vigilant against. I was very surprised that they were able to make an article this long out of furry corruption.
Yeah, it goes pretty deep. To try and not go as deep and not spend as long on it, it turns out that a lot of the Discord moderators are furries, which I don't know how you get.
Cool.
I mean, I guess like they invite their other furry friends and it just sort of builds from there. But the thing that they were trying to eradicate were underage pornographic photos, which, hey,
yeah, you kind of have to do that.
You need to get that off your service. Yeah. You know, that's going to be nothing but headaches for you.
But also suggestive imagery as well.
Now, here's where it gets weird. One of the most powerful furry mods posted, I think on Twitter, that Cub Play. Now, I've not previously heard of Cub Play. Have you heard of it?
No, I had no idea.
So Cub Play is it's furry version of pedophilia, basically, like young animals.
But it's animals.
Well,
it's animals on animals.
Is it animals or is it people
anthropomorphized animals? Well, some of it was like artwork, and like because the Discord people, actually one of the real Discord people was on record as saying this is kind of a weird gray area because it's like mythical animals and right. and it's artwork. So,
but they said it might be okay.
Yeah.
But why would it? You know, I just thought about this. Sonic had Tails was young. Tails was like much younger.
That's not good.
Oh, there's so much of that out there, I bet. Don't link to it.
It's like there's that Aristotelian friendship relationship between Sonic and Tails. That's not. Only about 4% of the audience gets that, but the 4% that do are really horrified.
Maybe some of them are like Sonic wearing a Spartan helmet. Anyway, it came out this whole big thing where the mods were pro-furry and they were allowing the weird furry stuff but not regular porn, and it's
a mess. And this is in the tech and science section of Newsweek. So, Newsweek.
Maybe they don't have a nonsense section. Maybe I should get one. We've talked about so many challenges here. Just quickly, there was the hot water challenge. There was the cinnamon challenge, as we talked about.
We talked about the ice bucket challenge way back.
The ghost riding one where you walk next to your car that's still running. Ice bucket. There's the bird box challenge. Remember the bird box challenge? So many more that we're not thinking of. And the newest one is kind of a reimagining of an old favorite.
The boiling water challenge is sending people to the hospital. So this one doesn't sound as bad as some of the other challenges because it's not like pouring boiling water on somebody. We've had record cold here in North America. And so the idea was you take boiling water and throw it into the air and it gets frozen.
Well, we've all seen videos of that.
Yeah, people are very bad at throwing boiling water.
Well, they either get too much water, because if you have a lot more water, then water that holds together doesn't cool as fast. Or they just don't estimate the temperature correctly.
Yeah.
They don't realize that it needs to be really cold.
It's 30 degrees outside. It'll freeze immediately. And it's like,
oh, I want to be part of this. Let's see, what is it outside? 36. Boil some water. So as you might imagine, they throw the water into the air to watch it, turn into steam immediately, and it falls back into their face, still boiling.
Yeah.
And they go to the emergency room. Challenge
because they've been burned.
But I like the idea of there's something called the boiling water challenge. And somebody's clicking on that and they're like, I need to be a part of this.
It takes all kinds.
This seems like something I want to do.
No.
So they actually, it's funny because, it's like the last part of this article, they say, we know that, it sounds fun to do the boiling water challenge, but you should leave it to the professionals. And it seems so...
Professional boiling water challenge enthusiasts?
It's so infantilizing, where it's like, no, stupid people. Don't screw around with boiling water. But then you realize that some people actually need that.
Well, listen, when you get burned, you're going to have to climb right back on that boiling water horse. Keep practicing until you...
You boil double the amount of water, and you keep throwing it in your face.
You can build up an immunity over time.
They also talk about, and I wouldn't have immediately thought about this either. I wouldn't throw boiling water into the air, but I wouldn't have thought about this. If you throw it up and it's cold enough to cool it, but not freeze it, when it lands on you, it will flash freeze. And that's coming off of the skin.
Mm.
Yeah. So a couple of people...
It's like when Ralph licked the telephone pole and his tongue got stuck to it.
Similar to that. Yeah, it's just as bad to have water on your skin that immediately freezes as it is to have boiling water. Well, maybe not as bad, but close to as bad. You don't want either of those things. No matter how many Instagram likes. Can you like on Instagram? Whatever Instagram does.
Instagram with Facebook at the helm is not long for this world.
Well, is that going to get... That's not going to get integrated, right? I'm sure it will eventually.
Did anybody like SoftBank invest in Facebook? We need to watch for them to pull their investment.
No, I think it's mostly just him and the public shares, right?
Oh, that's scary. It's really scary.
Well,
see you next week.
We'll be back next week. Maybe Krista will join us.
Definitely.
Who knows? Don't promise that. You don't know.
I don't know. I really don't.
We don't even know where she is. She might be, right now, she might be doing the boiling water challenge. And it is above freezing here, so she's in trouble.
See ya.